Chapter 1020 Mythical Tier. The Only Lord Talent, 10,000 Spirit Saint. Well done. Well, continue tomorrow. Zhou smiled at Bai Yin after reading the war report. Yes, Your Majesty. A look of joy appeared on Bai Yin's face, and she replied even more firmly before she took her leave. After Bai Yin left, Zhou was not in a hurry to upgrade his territory or Lord Talent. Instead, he opened the faction points ranking. First place. Human, Lord of the Blazing Sun. 5,359,000,000 faction points. Second place. Original Spirit Race, True Lord. 4,215,000,000 faction points. Third place. Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord. 3,992,000,000 faction points. Fourth place. Myriad Spirit Race, Spiritual Venerable Lord. 3,089,000,000 faction points. Fourth place. Chaos Gods Race, Great One Lord. 321 billion faction points. Zhou nodded slightly. Finally, there's a gap of 1 billion faction points. However, it's still not enough to reach my 10 billion faction points. Looks like I have to continue to work harder from tomorrow onwards, he thought to himself. Thankfully, he didn't have much else here. The Eye of the Heaven's anger had enough targets. I wonder what will happen if I kill all the targets of the Eye of the Heaven's anger. This thought suddenly appeared in Zhou's mind. Actually, the illusory life race had already given this answer. The event ended early, and the event prize fell into the hands of the illusory life race, without any suspense. Even though the illusory life race suffered because of this, it had nothing to do with Zhou. As the Lord of all races, Zhou had the protection of the Supreme Agreement. Before leaving the High Continent, he was basically not afraid of the experts of all races coveting the treasures he had. Then perhaps I can give it a try myself. After killing all the targets of the Eye of the Heaven's anger, I can end this event early. Zhou's heart pounded at the thought of this. If that was the case, then the final reward for this event was almost guaranteed to go to him. However, he then pondered of a new problem. To him, and the territory forces who were developing extremely quickly, every day of development was enough to cause changes in his territory. If he ended his current activities early, wouldn't it be equivalent to shortening his development time and entering the era of 10,000 worlds in advance? This was actually not very beneficial to him. At most, he would get the event's final reward in advance. However, to the Lord of all races who came from top-notch bloodlines, it could allow them to obtain the help of the races behind them in advance. Now that I think about it, if I really speed up the end of the activity, it seems like I'm doing the enemy a favor? Zhou muttered in his heart. Never mind. Let's do it step by step. He would kill as many as he could. He had to eat his fill first. Then, he stopped thinking about it. Instead, he took out 1 billion green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and fused them into a mythical tier Lord Talent origin divine crystals. Then, he silently used them in his mind. A text notification appeared. As you have 3 legendary tier Lord Talents, Insight Defection, Master Thief's Robbery Gloves, and Super Construction Engineering 9, please choose one to advance. After reading it, he did not hesitate and directly chose to upgrade the Lord Talent, Insight Defection. The Lord Talent, Master Thief's Robbery Gloves was completely enough at this stage for him. As for Super Construction Engineering 9, there was a need to upgrade it as his territory expanded. In the future, if he had excess Lord Talent crystal fragments, he could upgrade it to the mythical tier. Unique level. But now it was better to choose Insight Defection. Lord Talent has been chosen. Upgrading in progress. The next second, he felt an extremely strong warm feeling appear between his eyebrows again. Zhou was still looking forward to it even though he had experienced it before. After a long time the warmth faded. A new text notification appeared. Lord Talent upgrade successful. Congratulations, your legendary tier Lord Talent, Insight Defection, has been upgraded to mythical tier. Your only Lord Talent, 10,000 Spirit Saint. You have leveled up to mythical tier. The only Lord Talent effect is as follows. 10,000 Spirit Saint, specific talent effect 1. You are a sage in the eyes of all living beings. The moment all living beings see you, they will yearn to become your followers. There is a high chance that they will join your camp and submit to you. Specific talent effect 2. When you combat head-on with the enemy's Lord faction, as long as there is no absolutely irresistible difference in strength, you can trigger the 10,000 Spirit Saint talent and incite 50% of the enemies in the enemy's Lord faction to become your loyal subordinates. Moreover, among the enemies who were incited by incite defection, there would be a spellcaster who grasped incite surrender 100%. Send this spellcaster into the enemy camp for incite surrender. There is a 10% chance that all the members of the enemy lord's camp will be incite surrendered as your loyal subordinates. Lord Talent Notification 1. The minimum number of enemies for incite defection is 1 unit, and the maximum number is unlimited. Lord Talent Notification 2. You can trigger the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord Talent on any enemy faction. Lord Talent Notification 3. This talent can only be activated once a day. Lord Talent Notification 4. Enemies affected by the 10,000 Spirit Saint have a minimum basic loyalty of 90 points. Lord Talent Notification 5. This talent cannot be used twice against the same enemy Lord faction. Lord Talent Notification 6. The target of this talent will no longer be limited to a single army level faction or a single Lord level faction. Instead, it will treat all the enemies you are enemies with as one. From there, the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord talent will be activated. Is this the mythical tier, the only Lord talent, the 10,000 Spirit Saint? After Zhou saw the specific effect of this Lord talent, his eyes immediately lit up. His gaze landed on the last Lord Talent notification. The enemies against me are no longer limited to a single army level faction or a single Lord level faction. Instead, they will treat all the enemies against me as a single entity and trigger the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord Talent on the whole. After reading it, Zhou immediately chuckled heartily. It was not in vain that he had made such a huge decision. He had spent 1 billion green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments to raise incite defection to the mythical tier's only level. It had really removed the biggest drawback of the incite defection. From then on in the future, he would no longer have to worry. In the face of an enemy army of 10 billion, something as embarrassing as incite defection, only resulting in an army of billions, or even hundreds of millions had happened. He could directly instigate incite defection on the 10 billion strong army as a whole. He could directly possess half of his military strength. Furthermore, the limitless effects of his incite defection were enough to satisfy him. Wait, does that mean I can attack Uriel now? Zhou pondered of this question and began to think seriously. Chapter 1021 Mythical Tier. Only Lord Talent, Scarlet Brood Mother. Zhou thought for a while and decided not to make a move on Uriel for the time being. Uriel was a Master God tier seed that had a chance of becoming a Master God tier. And he also had a high-level bloodline, the Titan Gods. He definitely had a Master God tier level technique that he had, or that his race had given him. Even though Zhou had said that after killing so many true God tiers, he indeed had some Master God tier level means because of the King of Lutes. However, Zhou had specially asked the Bodhi Supreme to calculate it. With the Master God tier means that he was willing to take out, he would at most be able to tie with Uriel's Master God tier means. Zhou did not like a risky draw. He had to win if he wanted to fight. It wasn't a moment of life and death. In his current situation, he could attack or retreat. There was no need to take any risks. It wasn't a moment of life and death. In his current situation, he could attack or retreat. There was no need to take any risks. In the face of such a difference, I reckon that I won't even be able to trigger the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord talent after the battle. If such a situation really happens, wouldn't I be sending myself to my death? Zhou muttered. Naturally, he did not ignore the condition for the use of the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord talent, which was that there was no absolute and irresistible difference in strength. He now had more than 100 billion soldiers, and only 621 God spirits. Even if the God spirits of the Fire Cry human race and the Moon Demon race came over and joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom, the total number of God spirits under he would not exceed 2,000. They were far inferior to the 5,000 to 6,000 god spirits of the people of foreign races in the Uriel People of Foreign Race Alliance. Not to mention, there were still more than 30 true god tiers on the other side. In terms of ordinary soldiers, he could still fight them. However, in terms of god spirits, especially in terms of the number of true god tier, there was indeed a difference in strength that was absolutely impossible to resist. Zhou did not want to win miserably even if he could win. So, let's continue to develop for a while. There's no hurry. Uriel still wants to kill me. As long as I don't leave, he won't leave the high continent. Zhou thought to himself. Other than these innate abilities, its first talent effect could be considered to have raised the talent effect of insight defection to daily life. When others saw him, they would want to become his followers. How terrifying was this effect? Even the tyrannical aura in novels was not as impressive as this. As for the birth of the other talent effect, Spellcaster, it was originally at the legendary tier. Only after using the insight defection 10 times would a spellcaster with the ability to persuade surrender be born. Now that he had advanced to the mythical tier unique level, this probability became 100%. Every time he used the 10,000 Spirit Saint, a spellcaster would be born. Spellcaster was a god tier great hoodwinker, who had a 10% chance of inducting all the members of the enemy lord's faction into his loyal subordinates during a war. This kind of improvement was naturally an extremely strong improvement. This was equivalent to adding a new spellcaster under him every day. Before long, they could even form a spellcaster team. Zhou looked at the new lord talent carefully several times, and finally nodded in satisfaction. After upgrading to the mythical tier, unique level, the only regret of this talent was that it could be used once more. However, compared to the benefits it could bring, this limit was not that important. At this moment, a new thought appeared in his mind. He summoned Wuxia and told her his thoughts. Wuxia nodded and left. Zhou sat on the spot with an expectant smile on his face. I wonder if this method of mine will work. Let's see if my newly obtained mythical tier unique lord talent is as strong as I imagined. Zhou muttered. Then, he looked at the remaining lord talent crystal fragments and pondered. He could also upgrade a legendary tier lord talent to the mythical tier unique lord talent. He swept his gaze across the innate abilities of the lords and finally landed on the epic tier lord talent, Monster Ranch. This talent can increase my military strength explosively. Zhou muttered to himself. He didn't hesitate and chose to upgrade the other party. He first spent 100 million green bronze tier lord talent crystal fragments to fuse one legendary tier lord talent origin divine crystals. Then he used it silently in his heart. The next second, a text notification appeared. You have 6 epic tier lord talents. Monster Ranch, the Shelter of the Goddess of Life, Talent Intuition, Super Mission Expert, Dark Walker, and Light of Black Technology. Please choose one to advance. After reading it, he did not hesitate and directly chose to upgrade the Lord Talent Monster Ranch. As for the other 5 epic tier Lord Talents, they were also very good. However, it was still inferior to the Monster Ranch. Lord Talent has been chosen. Upgrading in progress. The next second, he felt a familiar warm feeling appear between his eyebrows again. Even though it was not as intense as when he leveled up to the mythical tier, the one and only Lord Talent, Zhou was also very satisfied. A moment later, the warmth faded. A new text notification appeared. Lord Talent upgrade successful. Congratulations, your epic tier Lord Talent Monster Ranch has been upgraded to legendary tier Lord Talent Monster Ranch. You have leveled up to mythical tier. The only Lord Talent effect is as follows: Lord Talent, Monster Ranch, legendary tier. Monster Ranch. Your territory has the method to build a special building, Monster Ranch. The Lord Talent information of the Monster Ranch still hasn't changed at the legendary tier level? Zhou clicked his tongue in wonder. However, he do not care. This was the Lord Talent. On the surface, here did not seem to be any changes. In fact, the change were enough to make one want to faint from joy. He didn't hesitate and directly took out 400 million green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and 6 mythical tier, unique Lord Talent crystal fragments to fuse into a mythical tier unique Lord Talent origin divine crystals. Then, he used it silently in his heart. As you have 3 legendary tier Lord Talents, Insight Defection, Master Thief's Robbery Gloves, and Super Construction Engineering 9. Please choose one to advance. Zhou do not hesitate and directly chose to upgrade the Lord Talent Monster Ranch. As for the other 2, he would think about them later. Lord Talent had been chosen. Upgrading in progress. The next second, he felt an extremely strong warm feeling appear between his eyebrows again. After a long time the warmth faded. A new text notification appeared. Lord Talent upgrade successful. Congratulations, your legendary tier Lord Talent, Monster Ranch, had been upgraded to mythical tier. Your solely Lord Talent Scarlet Brood Mother. You have leveled up to mythical tier. The solely Lord Talent effect is as follows. Chapter 1022 Scarlet Brood Mother. Upgrade territory. You have leveled up to mythical tier. The only Lord Talent effect is as follows. Scarlet Brood Mother. One of the sources of scarlet creatures. It nurtures monsters of a specific race by absorbing scarlet fog. Specific talent effect 1 Mist Mother. In order to share its incubation mission and focus on incubating high-quality offspring, the Scarlet Brood Mother can use the Crimson Law to create the Mist Mother. The Mist Mother can absorb the scarlet fog at night and produce fog monsters below the leader level. Specific talent effect 2 Scarlet Affinity. The Fog Monster faction sees you as a temporary member of their faction and will not take the initiative to attack you and your territory faction. However, when you take the initiative to attack the other party or do any harmful actions to the Fog Monster faction, this effect will automatically be broken. Specific talent effect 3 Scarlet King. As the owner of the Scarlet Brood Mother, the owner's status is comparable to the Scarlet King. You can go to any Fog Monster faction that has no grudge with you, or your territory faction, and let this Fog Monster faction be used by you. The level of this Fog Monster faction is the same as your own faction. Moreover, you can only have the loyalty of one Fog Monster faction at the same time. Specific talent effect 4 Scarlet Embryo. You can order the Scarlet Brood Mother to specially nurture a Scarlet Hero or a Scarlet God Spirit. The length of time a hero or god spirit can be nurtured depends on the level of the hero or god spirit. The higher the level, the longer the nurturing time. The lower the level, the shorter the nurturing time. It can shorten the gestation time of the embryo by going out to war and kill. Specific talent effect 5 Scarlet Blood Servant. The Scarlet Brood Mother's main body can nurture dragons, titans, elves, fairies, descendant of the god spirit, and other fog monsters with top-notch bloodlines to become the Scarlet Brood Mother's blood servants and protect the Scarlet Brood Mother. Zhou widened his eyes slightly. After Monster Ranch advanced to the mythical tier, it directly became the Scarlet Brood Mother? Why did this sound like Scarlet Lord's talent? It shouldn't be Scarlet Lord's talent. Otherwise, the Supreme Will would have appeared long ago. It's probably just literal. Zhou reminded himself. He looked at the information of the mythical tier 1 Lord talent and pondered. Specific talent effect 1, Mist Mother, should be the main effect of the original Monster Ranch. It was completely preserved, but its name had changed. The Scarlet Brood Mother should be the upgraded version of Mughus' main body. As for the Mist Mother, it should be the upgraded version of the monster clergyman under him. Why did this name sound like Cthulhu? Specific talent effect 2, Scarlet Affinity. To Zhou, this ability was equivalent to giving him an unlimited pass to freely enter and exit the Fog Monster faction. It was naturally useful. For example, it could be used in intelligence exploration. However, it was not very useful at this stage. Of course, he wouldn't take the initiative to attack the Fog Monster faction, just because the other party thought that he was a temporary member of his faction. He would still hit him without hesitation. He had long been labeled as a Supreme Will after all. It was impossible for him to be a fence-sitter and stand on both sides. The third talent effect, the Scarlet King, was not very useful at the moment. Zhou's current territory was only at the advanced grade of the epic tier after all. With the Scarlet King, he would at most have the allegiance of an advanced Scarlet Kingdom. He could easily defeat a beginner Empire Lord level force now. Why would he need an advanced Kingdom Lord level force? However, if this talent effect was used at certain special times, he might be able to obtain a surprise weapon and play a surprising role. As for the fourth talent effect, the Scarlet Embryo, it surprised Zhou. This was because the Scarlet Brood Mother could actually nurture god spirits. In the past, the monster ranch was limited by its level and could not cultivate Scarlet god spirits above its level. Now it was actually possible. Not bad, not bad. As for how to nurture it, he could ask the Scarlet Brood Mother later. As for the last Scarlet Blood Warrior, it was also a talent effect that surprised Zhou. He remembered that the monster ranch previously could not breed fog monsters with top-notch bloodlines like dragons, titans, and elven. Now it could actually do so, even though it could only be nurtured by the Scarlet Brood Mother, and the number of output should be limited. It could also allow Zhou to have many high-level bloodline soldier types under him, and they could be infinitely replicated. After upgrading my territory, I'll go to the Scarlet Brood Mother to take a look at the situation. Zhou thought. Then, he took a look at the number of Lord Talent Crystal Fragments he had. 2,156,522 Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 88,031,300 Green Bronze Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 9,239 White Silver Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 5,895 Yellow Gold Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 1,600 White Platinum Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 355 Diamond Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 12 Extraordinary Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 7 Epic Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 5 Legendary Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. 0 Mythical Tier Unique Lord Talent Crystal Fragment. Let's save it first. With my current development speed, it's no longer very difficult to accumulate enough to create the next Mythical Tier 1 Lord Talent. Zhou muttered to himself, but he could not help but laugh. There was a time when he believed that this was a mission that could not be completed at all. Now it has actually become simple to him. The place they were standing at was different, and the scenery they were looking at was indeed different. He felt a little emotional. Then, without much thought, he flew out of the Divine Kingdom and floated in the starry sky, looking in the direction of the Divine Kingdom's foundation. With a wave of his right hand, he took out 4,000 trillion units of basic materials, 10,000 legendary tier mist cores, 1 billion origin crystals, 10 billion basic elemental gems, 3 billion high-level elemental gems, and a legendary tier territory token to upgrade. Soon, a large number of upgrade materials disappeared, and a text notification appeared. Congratulations! Your epic tier advanced grade small blessed land has successfully been upgraded to a legendary tier elementary grade building and advanced to a large blessed land. Your territory has been successfully upgraded to a legendary tier elementary grade territory. Your epic tier advanced grade blessed land myriad formation has been upgraded to legendary tier elementary grade 9 refinement divine transformation formation. Durability of territory stone tablet increased to 200 billion/200 billion. Your territory has expanded to 1 million kilometers x 1 million kilometers x 100,000 kilometers. All fog monsters within the territory of the new territory have been expelled. Scarlet fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward. Basic construction blueprint treasure chest. Extraordinary tier elementary grade. Lord Talent hint. Your monster ranches can be upgraded. Lord Talent hint. Your mysterious caravan faction has increased. Lord Talent hint. The strength of the clergy in your Goddess of Lives shelter has increased. The next second, an even more dignified and loud voice sounded. Cerulean Planet World Channel Lord announcement. Congratulations to the Lord of the Blazing Sun, becoming the first Lord to upgrade his territory to legendary tier. Reward. Supreme Treasure Chest +1. Reputation Rating +1. Unique Title of the Race. Glory of the Pioneer 7 has advanced to Glory of the Pioneer 8. Cerulean Planet's entire channel's Lord announcement. Congratulations to the King of the Blazing Sun, Advanced Kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun? Cerulean Planet's entire channel's Lord announcement. Congratulations to the King of the Blazing Sun, Advanced Kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun. Zhou smiled. He finally won this title again, but he could not relax. He still wanted to get the subsequent titles. Fortunately, there shouldn't be many titles left. Then, Zhou was not in a hurry to look at the rewards. Instead, he opened the World Channel and all the other camp channels. Most of the lords of Cerulean Planet were discussing the advancement of his territory to the legendary tier. Zhou smiled when he saw this. Then he replied to his friend's congratulatory message and unlocked the latest title information. Title: Glory of the Pioneer 8. Title quality: Unique title of the race. Title effect 1. You are renowned among the Cerulean Planet lords. More people admire your reputation and yearn to join your territory. The number of citizens you can summon through the Gate of Summoning every day plus 800%. Professional talents of the same level as the Dominion among the subjects summoned plus 9. Title effect 2, same as before. Title effect 3. When you become the first Lord of Cerulean Planet with a low-tier deity level elementary grade territory, this title will be enhanced to Glory of the Pioneer 9, and additional title effects will be unlocked. Title introduction, same as before. Zhou was satisfied. However, the number of basic subjects he could invoke had doubled. There was also an additional professional talent at the same level as the territory. He was really looking forward to the distinction performance after leveling up to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. He could receive 10 god spirits for free every day, even if it was the weakest god spirit. Just the thought of it made him feel good. Chapter 1023 Upgrading the Gate of Summoning. Upgrading the Lord Talent. 1. After reading the title information, Zhou took the Supreme Treasure Chest and opened it. He saw a golden triangular flag lying quietly inside. Treasure name: Flag of Summoning. Treasure grade: Special tier. Treasure effect: When the Lord raises the Flag of Summoning to summon the entire army, all the soldiers under the Lord can see this flag and hear the Lord's call no matter where they are. The soldiers can respond to the Lord's call in their hearts and come to the Lord's side immediately to fight for the Lord. Treasure description: A special flag born in a certain source land. It has the magical effect of instantly summoning an army. Note: this treasure can only be used once a day. B0XO. This flag is quite functional. Furthermore, it can only be used by lords. It's a treasure exclusive to lords. Furthermore, it can only be used by lords. It's a treasure exclusive to lords. Then, he looked at the resources needed to upgrade his territory to the legendary level. Building upgrade: 2,000 trillion units of wood, 2,000 trillion units of fine sand, 2,000 trillion units of metal, 2,000 trillion units of stone, 50,000 pieces of legendary tier mist core, 2 billion origin crystals, 20 billion units of basic elemental gems, 2 billion units of thunder element gems, 2 billion units of life elemental gems, 2 billion units of death elemental gems, 5 legendary tier cities, 1,000 legendary level lifestyle professionals, 10,000 legendary tier military professionals, 200 race heroes, and 3 legendary tier territories. Basic materials: mist core, origin crystals, basic element gems, thunder element gems. The number of legendary tier cities, the number of lifestyle professionals and combat professionals, the number of racial heroes, and the number of legendary tier territory tokens. I'm satisfied. As expected, only the life elemental gems and death elemental gems are lacking in quantity. Zhou felt helpless. 2 billion life elemental gems and death elemental gems. In total, it was a total of 4 billion. He only had 400 to 500 million life elemental gems and death elemental gems left after the upgrade. It was far from enough to level up. We need to continue expanding outwards, Zhou thought. Thankfully, he didn't lack enemy territories that he could attack. In another 3 to 4 days, he should be able to gather the number of gems needed to level up. Then, he came to the Gate of Summoning. With a thought, he consumed 6 trillion units of basic materials and 1,000 legendary tier mist cores to upgrade the gate of summoning to the legendary tier elementary grade. Congratulations! Your gate of summoning has been successfully upgraded to a legendary tier elementary grade building. You can summon 10,000 subjects every day. You will summon 900 professionals every day. Prompt. Under the influence of the unique title of the race, Glory of the Pioneer 8, you can summon 139,500 subjects every day. You will summon 909 professionals from the subjects every day. After reading it, Zhou could not help but be surprised. This time, after advancing to the legendary tier elementary grade, the additional number of basic subject summons was actually 10,000. It allowed the total number of basic subjects to reach 15,500. After being buffed by the Glory of the Pioneer 8, it directly increased by 8 times, becoming 139,500 people. Not bad, not bad. Zhou was very satisfied. Then, he looked at the enhanced requirements for the Gate of Summoning. Construction upgrade. 10 trillion units of wood, 10 trillion units of fine sand, 10 trillion units of metal, 10 trillion units of stone, 2,000 pieces of legendary tier mist core. Territory level upgraded to legendary level. Zhou took a look and memorized it before returning to the Divine Kingdom world. In the Divine Kingdom world, when Zhou arrived, he immediately felt the improvement. The diameter of the Divine Kingdom world has increased from the previous 8 billion light-years to 50 billion light-years. The potential of the life forms in the Divine Kingdom world has also become more tolerant and diverse. The laws of the Divine Kingdom world have also become more perfect. Zhou nodded slightly, as expected of the Divine Kingdom world created by the Lord's laws. After the territory was upgraded, the Divine Kingdom world also received a huge upgrade. If they were gods who walked the path of other laws, even if they were lords of all races, they would definitely not be able to obtain such a huge increase after increasing the level of their territory. This was the advantage of the Lord's law. Then, he headed straight for the Mu residence where Mu Gu was located in the Divine Kingdom. When Zhou reached at the Mu residence, it looked the same as usual. However, under Zhou's divine eyes, he saw a behemoth-like monster that emitted a dense scarlet fog and the power of scarlet laws. He couldn't see his exact form. Most of his body was covered by the scarlet fog, and his heavy and terrifying breathing could be heard around him. Around him, a tall and thin woman holding a scarlet lantern floated in midair, spreading scarlet fog around her. All kinds of fog monsters were faintly discernible in the fog, making people afraid but also curious. Mu Gu, Zhou said. Your Majesty. Mu Gu's deep and heavy voice sounded. Please forgive me for not being able to welcome your Majesty. With my current attitude, it's very difficult for me to do anything else. Are you already a Scarlet Brood Mother? Zhou asked. Yes, your Majesty, Mu Gu said in a deep voice. I feel that I'm infinitely close to the origin of the Crimson Law. In fact, I can vaguely sense the existence of the Crimson Overlord. However, I don't dare to approach. The Crimson Overlord is as great as the Supreme Will. With a thought, he can wipe out all traces of my existence. Well done. Your own safety is the most important. Zhou clicked his tongue in his heart, but he nodded on the surface. Then he said with concern, I made you look like this. Do you feel any discomfort? Other than being unable to move, everything else is fine, Mu Gu said. I quite like this body in front of me. I can feel that this body has unlimited potential. It can help me reach a higher level. It's even a level that I didn't dare to imagine in the past. Zhou acknowledged. Tell me about your transformation this time. Yes, your Majesty. Firstly, in terms of my strength, I'm currently at the legendary tier elementary grade. The Scarlet Brood Mother's level is also the same as my strength. In addition, all the monster shepherds under my command have been transformed into mist mothers that can produce and cultivate basic ranch monsters. There are about 10,000 misty mothers under my command. They have their own mist mother world and can nurture designated fog monsters in their respective mist mother worlds. Each misty mother world can cultivate 10 million misty monsters. 10,000 mist mothers can cultivate 100 billion mist monsters. All the fog monsters can be used by me or your majesty. When your majesty needs them, I can guide all the fog monsters of the Mist Mother to combat with your majesty on the battlefield. I don't dare to say that it's a true god tier, but am confident that I can kill enemies below the true god tier. Mugu laughed in a low voice. Chapter 10:24 Upgrading the Gate of Summoning. Upgrading the Lord talent too then, he said. I can also specialize in nurturing high-quality scarlet heirs now. Your majesty, if you have a fog monster or a scarlet god spirit that you value, as long as you capture it alive and hand it to me, I can nurture an existence similar to a clone. It's not a problem for me to create 8 to 10 fog monsters with high bloodlines a day. As for god spirits, I currently need 3 days to nurture a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit. However, when my strength advances to the low-tier deity-level elementary grade, I can nurture a scarlet god spirit in a day. Zhou nodded. After a few seconds of silence he said B0XO. Come in that case, leave 2,000 of your 10,000 mist mothers to nurture mechanical fear falcons, iron-eating bears and withered trees. For the remaining 8,000 mist mothers, use 4,000 to nurture the violent storm demon spirit. The other 4,000 are used to nurture the yellow talisman Dao soldiers. As such, tomorrow, he would be able to obtain 120 billion yellow talisman Dao soldier recruitment books, 120 billion yellow talisman Dao soldier class change certificate, 120 billion violent storm spirit recruitment books, and 120 billion violent storm spirit class change certificate. If they use both the recruitment books and the class change certificate, he would have an additional 480 billion troops tomorrow. In addition, he already had more than 120 billion troops. His military strength could directly break through to 600 billion soldiers. This army was already comparable to the people of foreign races led by Uriel. Moreover, as his soldiers were all empire-level soldiers, once his 600 billion soldiers faced Uriel's 500 to 600 billion soldiers, he would definitely obtain a crushing victory. Wait till tomorrow. I'm not afraid of Uriel with such military strength. Zhou was excited, but his eyes were extremely deep. He felt that he was getting closer and closer to the decisive battle with Uriel. No god spirit in the entire high continent would be able to stop his development by the time he defeated Uriel. At that time, as long as he did not provoke Divine Kingdom lords or Super Empire lords, he could play around in the high continent. The high continent was the source of the infinite worlds. It was a good place. Top-grade resources could be said to be everywhere. At that time, he could mine it however he wanted. After a while, he came back to his senses and began to think about what Mugu's main body could nurture. However, he gave up after some thought. If Mugu's main body wanted to cultivate it, he had to bring over a living sample. For example, powerful scarlet creatures or scarlet god spirits. Even though Zhou had the monster army under his command, he did not fancy any of the fog monsters. Keep the cultivation spot in the Mugu for now. I'll use it when I have a suitable target in the future, Zhou thought to himself. After that, Zhou chatted with Mugu about more information about the Scarlet Brood Mother. After understanding more information about this Lord Talent, he returned to the Divine Kingdom's main hall in satisfaction. Not long after he arrived at the Divine Kingdom's main hall, Aaliyah came to report that Zheng Fugue and Carol Moeli wanted to see him. Zhou naturally agreed. Soon the two of them arrived in front of Zhou. Greetings, Your Majesty, Zheng Fugue and Carol Moeli said respectfully. Are the two of you here to talk about your improvement? Zhou asked with a smile. Exactly. They both nodded. That's exactly what I want. Tell me. Zhou nodded. When Zheng Fugue heard this, he was the first to step forward. Your Majesty, the number of mysterious merchants has increased from 2 million to 5 million. The number of carriages transporting goods has also increased to 5 million. In addition, the strength of all the mysterious merchant has also increased to the legendary tier elementary grade. Every mysterious merchant's mysterious business ring has become a dimensional ring that can accommodate a demiplane. In the end, our treasure hunting ability has also improved again. In the future, when we go out to do business, we should be able to bring back at least 10 treasures at a time. Not bad. A smile appeared on Zhou's face again. The mysterious caravan was not only an important channel for he to trade goods, but it was also an important high-end channel for he to obtain information. Its importance was not inferior to that of the Heavenly Map Army. Now that the mysterious caravan had such a huge improvement, it would be very beneficial to his future development. He was naturally very satisfied. He looked at Carol Moali and then, his brows twitched slightly. Carol Moali, did the upgrade of your territory not increase your strength? At this moment, Carol Moali still had the strength of an elementary grade true god tier, in his perception. She was almost the same as last time, except that her aura was stronger and more stable. There was no breakthrough. Carol Moali smiled bitterly and said, Your Majesty, I'm already a cardinal below the true god tier. The small increase in my territory can't allow me to obtain a massive increase in strength for the time being. Unless the level of my domain can be directly raised to the low-tier deity level elementary grade, then my power should be able to break through to the true god tier intermediate grade. However, although my god spirit realm hasn't improved, I'm more proficient in the various divine arts bestowed by your excellency. If I cast these divine arts now, not only will the effect be better, but the consumption in all aspects will also be greatly reduced. Zhou nodded thoughtfully and said, Continue. Carol Moali nodded and reported, Your Majesty, after the upgrade of the territory, the shelter of the Goddess of Life now has 2 billion clergymen, 2 billion priests, 20 nuns, and 20 billion holy knights of life. These clerics are enough to complete the healing mission of a super war involving hundreds of billions of troops. Zhou nodded. It was a pity that Carol Moali's divine spirit realm didn't improve. However, the increase in the number of clergy gave he some comfort. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. By the way, you said that you've become more proficient in the divine art? Is the Great Resurrection spell included? Zhou asked. The divine art that I have improved the most is the Great Resurrection spell. Carol Moali said respectfully. He knew that one of the abilities that His Majesty valued the most was the Great Resurrection spell, so it was the main goal of his focused practice. When his domain was upgraded and his Lord Talent helped him improve his abilities, he also chose the Great Resurrection spell. It was all for this moment. Can you resurrect an intermediate true god tier human? Zhou asked. Not before, but now my Great Resurrection technique can just improve a true god tier intermediate grade expert. Carol Moali smiled. He had made the right choice. Okay. Zhou smiled when he heard that. He said, Prepare well. Resurrect the mankind Buddha Lord tomorrow. Yes, Your Majesty, Carol Moali said respectfully. Chapter 1025 Lord Law and Crimson Law. Heras returns. Zheng Fugui and Carol Moali left. Zhou closed his eyes and felt the changes brought to him by the Scarlet Brood Mother, the only mythical tier Lord Talent after they left. A moment later, he opened his eyes, and his gaze flickered. My Lord's Law Talent has indeed become stronger. Also, with the enhancement of the Law Skill King, and the addition of the current Mu Gu into the range of the King, I can actually sense the existence of the Crimson Law now. Zhou muttered to himself. Previously, he didn't sense the existence of the Crimson Law even when he cast King, and included Mu Gu. However, he could feel it. Perhaps Mu Gu's Crimson Law talent had already reached a certain level, which made Zhou feel something. Lord's Law, Crimson Law. Zhou closed his eyes and carefully comprehended the difference between the two. If the Lord's Law was the law of order that governed everything and maintained the rules, in that case, the Crimson Law was equivalent to destroying the balance and chasing after madness and disorder. The two are almost inherently opposed. No wonder the Supreme Will and Crimson Overlord fought so fiercely. So it's a battle of laws, a battle of the great Tao. Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, Aaliyah's voice came from outside the temple. Your Majesty, Your Excellency True God Tier Blazing Sun, the God of Abyssal Knights, and Your Excellency Sword Emperor Fuyo request an audience. Quickly invite them in. Zhou raised his eyebrows and immediately said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Aaliyah left. It seems that their hunting operation is over. Zhou thought to himself. Soon Haros, Baihe, and Patriarch Lu came over together. "Greetings, Your Majesty," Haros said respectfully. "Speaker Zhou." Baihe and Patriarch Lu still addressed Zhou as speaker in front of the others. "How was your hunt today? Did anything happen?" Zhou asked with a smile. He looked at them and didn't see any injuries. There was a little accident, but it wasn't a big deal. Haros smiled and said, "When the three of us went to hunt down the true gods of Yin and Blood Sea, we happened to meet this guy and another Rakshasa true god. They were discussing how to deal with the Blazing Sun Kingdom. We had no choice but to fight alongside these two Rakshasa true god tiers. Fortunately, these two fellows don't have a single true god tier divine artifact on them. Furthermore, they only have the strength of a true god tier elementary grade. The three of us relied on the huge advantage of having true god tier divine artifacts on us, and easily killed these two Rakshasa true god tiers before the other Rakshasa true gods arrived." "Exactly," Patriarch Lu nodded and said with a smile. "Speaker Zhou, your new true god is really brave. Your Excellency Haros alone killed one of the two Rakshasa true god tiers. Baihe and I worked together to kill the other one. In the end, Haros eliminated the enemy faster than us. After we killed Yin Luo, we realized that His Excellency Haros had already killed another Rakshasa true god, Emma Wang. He really doesn't look like a newbie who has just become a true god." Zhou smiled and did not say anything. Haros didn't just have a full body of true god tier divine artifacts. Most importantly, he had received the divine inheritance of the Master God tier, Blazing Sunday. This Master God tier was a Master God tier existence that was extremely good at fighting. His inheritance allowed Haros to easily kill a true God tier of the same level. To be honest, currently, Baihe and Patriarch Lu were both true God tier cultivators who had relied on themselves. This was indeed worthy of praise and admiration. However, the two of them had to open their own paths in the future, without the help of other external forces, just from the difficulty of reaching a higher God spirit realm. Haros was really more relaxed than them. Furthermore, Haros still had the possibility of becoming a Master God tier. As for Baihe and Patriarch Lu, it would be difficult for them to become true God tier advanced grade in the future, let alone Master God tier level. I can help Patriarch Lu and Baihe if there is a chance in the future, Zhou thought to himself. Now, Zhou had already treated the two of them as his good friends in the human race. He naturally didn't wish for the two of them to not see the hope of advancing to a higher level in the future under the premise that he had the ability and strength to spare. Wasn't it just two Master God tier inheritances? He could just find two opposing true God tiers and kill them. Then, the three of them handed Zhou two Rakshasa true God tier corpses. Zhou naturally wouldn't go back on his word. He let them choose the two true God tier divine artifacts they wanted, and let them leave. After they left, Zhou retrieved the spoils of war from the two true God tier corpses. Soon, all the loots were extracted and placed into Zhou's king's treasure box. He had obtained a total of 12 types of 36 true God tier advanced grade divine artifacts, and more than 100 true God tier intermediate grade and lower true God divine artifacts. There were 600 Master God tier divine crystals, 12 Master God tier law skills, 2 Book of the God Spirit, 17 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, and more than 100 true God tier materials, potions and other treasures. Zhou smiled. 2 true God tier elementary grade divine artifacts had been exchanged for so many top-notch divine artifacts and other treasures. He wondered what the others' expressions would be if they knew. Then, he entered the time world and continued to comprehend the Lord's laws. He had comprehended a total of 2 Lord nomological directions. One was to comprehend higher laws according to the height of the king, and the myriad methods star palm. The other direction was to comprehend the Lord's law engravings that he already had. By comprehending these Lord's law engravings, he could expand the width of his law and attempt to comprehend other Lord's law skills. Now, he was comprehending the nomological engravings behind the mythical tier. the only Lord Talent, the 10,000 Spirit Saint. I vaguely felt that this Lord's Law would be very useful for me to comprehend the Lord's Law, after it was raised to this level, before I raise it to the mythical tier unique level. From the looks of it, it's true. It turns out that behind the 10,000 Spirit Saint, there is actually a Lord's nomological technique. I will be able to obtain the third Lord Law skill if I can comprehend it. Zhou muttered to himself. Then he gradually comprehended at a deeper level. A moment later, Zhou Fight also entered the time world, and began to comprehend the Lord's Law skill, after dealing with the military affairs. He did not comprehend the Lord's nomological engravings behind the 10,000 Spirit Saint with Zhou. He was still comprehending the king, and the myriad methods Star Palm as the main battle avatar. After a while, Zhou managed join the queue to comprehend the Lord's Law, after dealing with all the administrative matters. Like Zhou, he comprehended the mysteries of the Lord's laws behind the 10,000 Spirit Saint. He could feel that after dealing with a series of government affairs, and joining his main body and Zhou Zhan's team, the speed at which the three of them comprehended the Lord's laws had increased significantly. The three of them also understood something while they were experiencing happiness. It turns out that the administration of the territory is beneficial to increasing the efficiency of comprehending the Lord's Law. Chapter 1026 Miss Mother World. Terrifying daily production of Galaxy. Time passed quickly. The next day, Zhou Manage was the first to wake up from the time world. He looked at Zhou Fight and Zhou and shook his head helplessly with a smile. After complaining about his endless work, he left the reincarnation sacred palace to deal with the daily government affairs. Not long after, Zhou Fight also woke up from the time world. He did not waste any time, and immediately went to find Bai Yun, and prepared to deal with the fog monster of the Scarlet Brood Mother. Zhou also sensed the actions of his two clones, but he didn't move. He only sent a portion of his will to Zhou Fight and took over his body to search for Bai Yun, the Scarlet Brood Mother. When Zhou found Bai Yun and brought the army to the Scarlet Brood Mother, Bai Yun and the rest were immediately shocked by the Scarlet Brood Mother's form. This is Lord Mugu, Bai Yun said in disbelief. Didn't Legion Commander Bai Yun sense my aura? Mugu said with a deep and rough laugh. Even though his form had changed, the aura of his life essence hadn't changed. I feel it. Bai Yun was stunned. Then, she nodded with a complicated expression. It's indeed you, Lord Mugu. Mugu smiled lightly. Take us into the Mist Mother world. Zhou said. Yes, Your Majesty. Mugu said. I will divide His Majesty's army into 10,000 parts, because I have 10,000 subordinates. Each part will have about 11 million soldiers. Then, these 11 million soldiers will work together to deal with the 10 million fog monsters in each Mist Mother world. Your Majesty, don't worry about the safety of your soldiers. I will suppress the combat power of the fog monsters to the lowest level, and let His Majesty's soldiers slaughter them at will. I guarantee that there won't be any casualties. Let's do that. Zhou nodded. All right, Your Majesty. Mugu nodded and said, Everyone please relax. We will reach the Mist Mother world very soon. Tall and beautiful women holding scarlet lanterns appeared, spreading scarlet fog around them around the Scarlet Brood Mother. It was the Mist Mother. Everyone looked up at the Mist Mother. The next second, the scarlet lanterns in the hands of these mysterious and beautiful women suddenly emitted a shocking attraction. Everyone could feel that with their own strength, they could resist this attraction and not be sucked into the lantern. However, they listened to Mugu and did not resist the gravitational force. The next second, everyone including Zhou, Bai Yun, all the soldiers, god spirits, galaxy, and soldiers were sucked into the scarlet lanterns of these beautiful women. Mist Mother World. This was a scarlet world shrouded in scarlet fog. A huge scarlet sun stood high in the sky, its scarlet light illuminating everything. Everything was also scarlet in color. They looked evil and ferocious, emitting a dense scarlet fog. Yellow talisman Dao soldiers with bloodshot eyes wandered on the bloody ground, accompanied by strange and hoarse screams or whispers. Zhou, Bai Yun, and more than 10 million soldiers saw this scene when they arrived. This seems to be the ranchland plane from before? Bai Yin said uncertainly. More or less. Zhou nodded and said with a smile. Back then, Mugu only had one ranchland plane. There are already 10,000 ranchland planes like this now. And in the future, he will have even more ranchland planes, 1,000 crimson worlds, 1,000 crimson worlds, and even 1,000 crimson worlds. Bai Yin nodded in shock. At this moment, Mugu's voice sounded in Zhou and Bai Yun's ears. Your Majesty, Legion Commander Bai Yun, I have already gathered the 10 million yellow talisman Dao soldiers in this Miss Mother world within a radius of 10 million kilometers and ordered the Miss Mother to suppress their strength to 1%. This should make it easier for our soldiers to kill these fog monsters. Zhou nodded and looked at Bai Yun. Go. Yes, Your Majesty, Bai Yin said respectfully. Then, he immediately flew to the front of the army and ordered the entire army to attack the wandering yellow talisman Dao soldiers and fog monsters. Zhou stood not far away and watched the scene quietly. Half an hour later, 100 billion fog monsters were successfully wiped out by the billion-strong army of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Zhou also successfully obtained all the spoils of war. However, he did not pay attention to the other loots. He only paid attention to the 480 billion recruitment books and class change certificates. It's really 480 billion copies. Zhou looked at the recruitment books and class change certificates and felt like he was dreaming. Next, he only needed to use these books, and he would be able to obtain 480 billion recruits. The soldiers he had now added up to only 130 billion. He took a deep breath and calmed his agitated emotions. Then he handed the 240 billion class change certificates to Bai Yin and asked him to find someone to change his class. Your Majesty, are they all going to be changed by humans? Bai Yin asked. Prioritize the human race. If the human race doesn't have enough people to change their jobs, let the Fire Cry human race or the Moon Demon race do it. Zhou asked. Yes, Your Majesty, Bai Yin said respectfully and turned to leave. Zhou took the 240 billion recruitment books and came to the gate of summoning. After he arrived, he did not immediately summon her. Instead, he suddenly said, Wunya, how's the production of the galaxy in the territory? How many galaxies can be produced every day? Your Majesty, currently, we have already laid down more than 50,000 galaxy spaceship manufacturing bases in the entire human territory. Moreover, we are also laying down the galaxy spaceship manufacturing bases in the newly obtained territory of the Fire Cry human race and the Moon Demon race. We expect to build 1 million galaxy spaceship manufacturing bases in all the current territories. This way, with sufficient manufacturing materials, we can produce 100,000 galaxy ships every day. Our current production is 5,000 ships per day. When you said respectfully, Zhou the king was shocked. How long had it been since he had asked about such matters? Why were there more than 50,000 manufacturing bases on the galaxy? Your Majesty, have you forgotten your legendary tier lord talent, Super Construction Engineering 9? What's more, we now have sufficient manpower, material resources, and financial resources. We don't lack in any aspect. Naturally, we can easily create more than 50,000 galaxy spaceship manufacturing bases. Zhou came to a realization. He had almost forgotten that he had the lord talent. Where are the materials for the galaxy? Zhou asked. He remembered that the materials used to make the galaxy were very scarce. Back then, when the leaders of the various human factions wanted to produce galaxy on his behalf, each faction leader could merely produce 20 galaxy materials at most. The ultimate overlord has been providing support for the production materials of the galaxy. The ultimate lord said to us, the materials of the galaxy are considered rare in the human race, but in the eyes of the big shots of the Machina race, they can merely be considered low-end materials. As long as there are enough mist core or divine crystals, he can buy any spaceship manufacturing materials indefinitely from the Machina race. When you said respectfully, how many galaxy ships do we have? Zhou the king inquired the question he was most concerned about. We have produced a total of 21,560 galaxy ships. 20,000 of them are currently unoccupied, and the rest of the galaxy is in service. When you trailed off, Zhou the king heaved a sigh of relief. Great. He would be able to rest with more than 600 billion soldiers. Moreover, in the near future, he would not have to worry about the troops not having a place to stay. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated. He directly threw all 240 billion recruitment books into the Gate of Summoning. Chapter 1027 600 billion total troops. Su Yuan's shock. Zhou followed the old rules and summoned 300 galaxy ships through Wuxia. Then, he got the 240 billion new recruits to be located in the inner world of the galaxy. Finally, he used 100 legendary tier mist cores to summon all the new recruits at once. In the blink of an eye, 240 billion new recruits appeared in the internal world of every galaxy, and appeared in front of Zhou, with 300 virtual screens. The 8 billion recruits in every galaxy's internal world also saw a huge virtual projection that looked like Zhou. At this moment in the virtual projection, Zhou spoke. All newly enlisted soldiers, welcome to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. My kingdom will definitely bring you an incomparably glorious future. Please believe that. B0XO. Calm Zhou's tone revealed his strong confidence and affirmation. Such a confident tone also infected all the recruits. All the recruits roared respectfully in unison. To die for His Majesty. Zhou nodded slightly and disappeared from the virtual projection. In front of the Gate of Summoning, Zhou then waved his hand and turned off the projection. He nodded in satisfaction. The troops under him could be considered 592,804,281,114 soldiers. Together with the Star Alliance's 1 billion recruits, they officially broke through to 600 billion recruits, reaching the level of 616. 9 billion soldiers. That's 600 billion soldiers. Zhou sighed. He did not know how strong the forces of the Divine Kingdom Lords were. However, his military strength had definitely crushed most of the Empire-level lords. In the myriad worlds, this strength would probably be similar to gathering all the troops of the various races in a small world. It wouldn't exceed 1 trillion troops with the small world's capacity, which meant that with his current military strength, he could completely carry out a world conquest war on a fulfilled world. Take all the Violent Storm Spirit recruits to the Forbidden Mage class change statue for the class change. As usual, the fees will be borne by our officials. Zhou stopped thinking and uttered to Wuxia. Yes, Your Majesty. Wuxia uttered respectfully. The next second, 300 galaxy ships in the sky suddenly split into two. Half of them headed to the Blazing Sun Kingdom's army base. The other half flew towards Su Yuan's Forbidden Mage class change statue. When they flew to the class change statue, they happened to see Bai Yun leading the 240 billion human recruits, who had just completed the class change certificate, with the Violent Storm Spirit, to gather around the class change statue. Wuxia and Bai Yi communicated for a while before deciding to change their professions together. Greetings, Forbidden Archmage, Your Excellency Su Yuan. One of the Blazing Sun Army's deputy legion commanders, a mid-tier deity elementary grade Violent Storm Spirit God Spirit, who commanded all the Violent Storm Spirit soldiers, announced loudly at this moment. The 240 billion Violent Storm Spirit recruits bowed to the Forbidden Archmage's class change statue. An invisible power of faith surged from every recruit of the Violent Storm Spirit silently. Then, they flew in the direction of the Forbidden Mage's class change statue, and quickly fused into their bodies. Rumble. This incomparably huge power of faith caused the entire statue to tremble and emit a shocking four-colored light. At the same time, in the hall of the Goddess of Magic, Su Yuan, who was having sex with the Goddess of Magic, felt an incomparably ferocious power of faith suddenly rush into the origin of his magic divine spark, making he suddenly become energetic. At this moment, he only felt that he was filled with power. When he looked at the Goddess of Magic again, the flames in his eyes were like a tiger seeing a lamb. After a long time, how did you suddenly become so fierce? The Goddess of Magic uttered lazily, as she looked at Su Yuan with admiration. He felt that Su Yuan was extremely fierce today. He was even fiercer than usual. It was as if he had suddenly taken medicine. Just now, I felt like there were at least 200 billion life forms with extremely high potential offering their faith to me. I even felt like I was getting closer to the path of a master god tier. How could I not be fierce? Su Yuan said. More than 200 billion life forms with extremely high potential? The goddess of magic uttered in surprise. Have they all become your believers? No, it's just a belief dedicated to the profession. They might dedicate an extremely high level of enthusiasm to the profession I gave them. But that's for the profession, not for me. Their intrinsic beliefs still belong to that human lord. Su Yuan shook his head. That human lord? The human lord who peeped at us last time? The lord of the blazing sun? The goddess of magic asked curiously. Su Yuan nodded helplessly. TSK. As expected of the number one lord of all races that everyone fears. I did not think would be able to get involved with that guy from so far away. The goddess of magic was amazed. Su Yuan nodded in agreement. Then, he uttered excitedly. I hope that fellow can come and help me a few more times. This way, I might be able to advance to the master god tier level sooner. The goddess of magic nodded as well, recalling the experience just now. I wish that guy would come more often, he said, looking at him meaningfully. What did you say? Su Yuan looked at Mistra with a dangerous gaze. Looks like I need to investigate the mysteries of magic. The two of them began to watch content that minors were not allowed to watch, accompanied with sighs. Just as the 240 billion soldiers of the violent storm spirit were in full swing, Zhou was still standing in front of the gate of summoning, preparing to summon today's subjects. He summoned all 139,500 new subjects from the gate of summoning at once after spending 100 legendary tier mist cores to accelerate. Greetings, my lord. All the new subjects uttered respectfully in unison. Welcome to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Zhou nodded slightly. Then, he got all the professionals to stand up and realized that he had summoned a total of 1,050 professionals this time. He summoned 141 more professionals than usual. Among them were a legendary tier elementary grade chef, a legendary tier magic equipment chef, a legendary tier array master, a legendary tier elementary alchemist, a legendary tier elementary arcanist, a legendary tier elementalist, a legendary tier wind magician, a legendary tier troll warlock, and a legendary tier divine artifact forging apprentice. Zhou looked at the divine artifact forging apprentice in surprise. His luck was pretty good to have another divine artifact forging apprentice. What's your name? He asked the pretty girl with long fiery red hair and wheat-colored skin, who had a few freckles. My name is Celia Rofa. The girl's eyes lit up. Her clear voice indicated that she was in a good mood. Celia Rofa? Zhou raised his brows. Who is god of sun and forging Rofa to you? He's my grandfather, my lord. Do you know my grandfather? Celia asked curiously. Chapter 1028 Demonic Kitchenware, 8 Chaos Knife. SSS rank special ability, Emperor's Descent. The Third Lord's Law skill. They are actually related? Zhou was surprised, but he smiled on the surface. I've long heard of the heavenly god Arofa. By the way, do you know Jacker? That's my junior brother. Very good. He is also in this king's territory. If you have time, you can work with him. Very well, your majesty. Celia nodded vigorously, not shy at all. Zhou sighed inwardly. This little girl's personality was the complete opposite of Jacker's. Jacker's personality was like that of an autistic kid. This little girl was much more lively. Then, he looked at the other 8 legendary tier elementary grade subjects, and his gaze fell on the magic equipment chef. He opened the other party's stats list and realized that the other party came from a magic equipment chef's small world. The rules of cooking in this world seemed to have changed. The dishes, cooking ability, and cooking utensils all possessed extraordinary power. This magic equipment chef was none other than the magic equipment chef, who had mastered a magic equipment known as the 8 Chaos Knife. The mutant beside him came from a small world with technological superpowers. The other new subjects also had their own legendary backgrounds. He had already reached the legendary tier elementary grade after all. Who doesn't have a story on them? Zhou exchanged a few words with the new subjects. After welcoming them as subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, he handed them over to the officials to arrange while he walked to the Lord's shop. When he arrived, he saw Zhou Qingmin sitting in front of the counter, using a virtual projection to look at a website. Zhou walked closer and realized that it was a game strategy website. It was a game strategy website called Lord's Era. Your Majesty, you're here. When Zhou Qingmin saw Zhou, he came back to his senses and hurriedly stood up. Another game? Zhou asked casually. This game is new. It's the most popular among all the virtual reality games, be it in terms of strategies or esports popularity. I heard that after our kingdom enters the era of mixed virtual reality, this game will also release a mixed virtual reality version. We can also synchronize accounts. However, Zhou Qingmin was very interested in introducing them to Zhou. Zhou nodded. He suddenly felt something and asked, "Who is the strongest player in this game?" "Businessman Shun." Zhou Qingmin said without hesitation. "That guy is in the top 3 of all the rankings in the game. Moreover, he's ranked first on the level rankings, equipment rankings, and money rankings. He can be considered the number 1 player in the Lord's Era." Businessman Shun. He should be the young man in the wheelchair, when I saw the virtual gaming helmet being released. Chapter 809, Tisk. My divination was really right. He has indeed become a famous player. I hope he can use this game to treat his leg and his little sister's illness. Zhou recalled the past and couldn't help but smile in his heart. Following that, he inquired Zhou Qingmin about today's products. When Zhou Qingmin heard this, he took out 3 purple boxes from under the counter. Zhou was curious when he saw the 3 boxes. He opened the 3 boxes without a word. There were 3 items in the 3 boxes. A Divine Artifact Forging Apprentice Class Change Certificate. 1 Special Ability Origin Crystal. It was a pitch-black kitchen knife with mysterious engravings. Among them, the Divine Artifact Forging Apprentice Class Change Certificate could allow a blacksmith to change his class to become an Empire-level rare lifestyle professionals. Divine Artifact Forging Apprentice. Special Ability Origin Crystals could help humans awaken an enhanceable bloodline skill. The upper limit of growth was the upper limit of their potential. The last black kitchen knife was a special kitchenware, the 8 Chaos Knife. Treasure name, Magic Kitchen Utensil, 8 Chaos Knife. Treasure grade, Special. Treasure effect. The 8 Chaos Knife can easily cut through the flesh and bones of all the beasts in the world without any hindrance. Moreover, it can maintain the original taste of the flesh and blood. It's a good and rare demonic kitchenware. Treasure description, a unique product from the demon chef's small world. It is also the enemy of all beasts. Zhou gazed at it for a while. He originally wanted to give it to the magic equipment chef. However, after thinking about it, he still chose to stay. In the future, he could cut meat and cook for Liya. How many mist cores do these 3 goods cost? Zhou asked. Divine Artifact Forging Apprentice Class Change Certificate, worth 500 legendary tier mist cores. Special Ability Origin Crystal, valued 200 legendary tier mist cores. 8 Chaos Knife, worth 200,000 legendary tier mist cores. Zhou Qingmin smiled. Ah, this 8 Chaos Knife is actually so expensive. Zhou was shocked. 200,000 legendary tier mist cores. He had been buying goods from the Lord's shop for so long, but this was the first time he had encountered such an expensive item. This 8 Chaos Knife is a unique creation of laws. It has absolute cutting rules against the flesh and blood of beasts. Even a Master God tier divine beast can be cut by this 8 Chaos Knife. In the myriad worlds, I'm afraid only that the magic equipment chef's small world can produce a unique kitchenware with such an effect. Your Majesty, do you think it's worth this price? Zhou Qingmin smiled. It can even cut the flesh of a Master God tier beast. Zhou's expression turned serious. Such absolute rules could already be regarded a Master God tier divine artifact. There was indeed no problem with the price of the 8 Chaos Knife. I'll buy it. Zhou did not hesitate this time, and said directly, "Thank you for your patronage, Your Majesty." "Your Majesty, just transfer the money." Zhou Qingmen smiled. Zhou did not waste any time. He scanned the other party's QR code and transferred 200,700 legendary tier mist cores to him. Then he successfully obtained these 3 items. Following that, Zhou returned to the Divine Kingdom's main hall and passed over all the goods to his main body. Then he went to meet up with Bai Yun. Bai Yun stood respectfully in front of His Highness in the Divine Kingdom's main hall. After Zhou's main body obtained the 3 items, he conveniently threw the Divine Artifact Forging Apprentice Class Change Certificate into the Military Merit Exchange system. He also restricted blacksmiths with high military contributions to be able to spend military merits to exchange for it. Then, he played with the 8 Chaos Knife for a while before throwing it into his king's treasury. In the end, he received out the Special Ability Origin Crystal. Special Ability Origin Crystal. A strange expression appeared on Zhou's face. "I'm a god spirit, but I'm actually going to awaken my special ability?" He played with the black crystal nonchalantly for a while. He casually touched the Special Ability Origin Crystal with his spiritual power and activated the power within, fusing it into his divine body. Then, he circulated the divine power in his body. In the blink of an eye, he completely digested this Special Ability Origin Crystal and successfully awakened his special ability. "My genetic energy is SSS rank special ability, Emperor's Descent." Zhou muttered to himself. "In the domain that I descend into, the living beings in the domain will naturally change their minds at the last minute and become my obedient subjects. It's equivalent to my territory wherever I go. If you stay in my domain for too long, this kind of mental change will become a permanent change. You will really become a subject who is loyal to me, even if you leave the Emperor's Descent domain. After upgrading this domain, it will upgrade the range of the Emperor's Descent domain. And am currently a low-tier deity level intermediate grade god spirit. If I come to a plane, I can use Emperor's Descent to directly replace the plane's will, and replace the heaven's will with my own heart to become the lord of the plane and command the entire plane. And on a supercontinent like the High Continent, it can directly rule an area of 10 million square kilometers. It's equivalent to the total area of a legendary tier territory. Emperor's Descent, 10,000 Spirit Saint. Zhou's eyes lit up as countless nomological inspirations surged in his mind. "I know what my third Lord Law skill looks like." After saying this, Zhou closed his eyes and fell into a deep state of enlightenment. Chapter 1029 New Change in the Persuasion Letter. Mythical Reputation Rating Talent. The Blazing Sun Kingdom, at the Blazing Sun Palace in the Council Hall. Zhou's clone, Zhou Manage, was sitting on the throne dealing with the government affairs in front of him. In the hall, more than 100 high-ranking officials of the kingdom were sitting neatly together with Zhou Manage to deal with government affairs. They were all using their personal terminals to work online. After all, it was very convenient to save time and effort. If not for the fact that there were some important government affairs that needed to be discussed face-to-face to resolve, these ministers could have worked from home. At this moment, Prime Minister Zheng Yuanqi walked over happily and sent an electronic memorial to Zhou Manage. "Your Majesty, look. What a joyous occasion." "Oh." Zhou Manage raised his eyebrows and looked over. Then, he quickly revealed a happy expression. The electronic memorial read, "Among the 161 people of foreign races who had stopped the humans from retreating to the primordial world, 150 people of foreign races had already accepted the surrender letter and were willing to become citizens of the people of foreign races in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Moreover, more than half of the other 32 kingdom-level lord factions that had subordinate relationships with other people of foreign races who had empire-level lord factions were actually willing to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom. As for the 11 people of foreign races that had empire-level lords, other than the Fire Cry race that had been exterminated, the other 10 people of foreign races, Zhou and the others, had not made any moves for the time being, because they had not sent out any letters of surrender. More than half of the people of foreign races, who previously stopped the humans from retreating to the primordial world, are actually willing to surrender to our country now. Why are they suddenly willing to surrender? Wasn't his attitude like this before? Back then, when we first sent a letter of surrender to each other, their attitude was very arrogant. Zheng Yuanqi exclaimed in surprise. Because last night, I sent another letter of surrender to these people of foreign races in my own name. I'm the saint of 10,000 spirits, and my strength is definitely above the other party. Coupled with the extermination battle results accumulated over the past 2 days, it's reasonable for them to be willing to surrender. Zhou Manage said calmly. The moment Zhou's main body knew the effects of the 10,000 spirit saint, he immediately ordered Wunya to send another letter of surrender to the many people of foreign races who were unwilling to surrender in the name of his main body. He even attached a personal image of his main body. And the first effect of his mythical tier unique lord talent was Frowny Face Specific Talent Effect 1. You are a sage in the eyes of all living beings. The moment all living beings see you, they will yearn to become your followers. There is a high chance that they will join your camp and submit to you. It was precisely because of this talent effect, coupled with various other factors, that the effect of his letter of surrender was astonishing. The next day, he received so many applications from people of foreign races to surrender. If it was a weak lord with few subordinates and no records of extermination, even if the other party had the lord talent of the 10,000 spirit saint, it would not have such an astonishing effect. The timing, under the Supreme Agreement, Zhou was almost invincible in the Supreme Continent. Geographical advantage, with the galaxy to quickly attack, there was no need to worry about accidents along the way. Human strength, in addition to his unparalleled strength, and the domineering 10,000 spirit saint lord talent, were all on his side. It would be strange if these people of foreign races did not surrender. That's great. This way, not only can we reduce the number of killings, but we can also increase the number of fresh troops in our army. Moreover, the total number of subjects of these people of foreign races is probably close to 100 trillion. These are all the fresh blood of our Sun Kingdom. Zheng Yuanqi was extremely excited. There's no need to move these soldiers of the people of foreign races who are willing to surrender. There's also no need to recall our kingdom and join our army. Just stay in the territory of the original race to protect their territories. It also saves us from having to send our elite troops over to guard it. However, when we use the class change certificate to recruit new soldiers, we can recruit troops from these people of foreign races. The soldiers recruited with recruitment books are all human soldiers. The troops who used the class change certificate were all soldiers from the people of foreign races. The two can be balanced. This can also ameliorate the conflicts caused by different races, and let them know that although they are different, they are all protecting their country and nurturing a sense of national identity. Zhou Manage said, in any case, with a heaven-defying talent like the peaceful times, as long as the people of foreign races surrendered to him, they were basically loyal. There was no need to worry about leaving their soldiers in the territory of the original race. In the future, there would be situations like raising tigers and causing trouble. It saved him the trouble of sending troops over to camp. Your Majesty is wise. I'll do it now. Zheng Yuanqi praised sincerely, and immediately went to carry out this matter. It was already very difficult for His Majesty to take charge of the decision-making. As for the remaining tasks of running errands and sharing responsibilities, they naturally had to leave them to the officials. After dealing with the government affairs for about half an hour, Zheng Yuanqi walked over again. Your Majesty, your request has been given. I have another matter to report. Just now, a high-tier deity-level advanced grade god spirit came to the territory of our blazing Sun Kingdom and said that he wanted to meet you personally and unite you. I saw that the person had an extraordinary bearing, so I specially came to report. Zheng Yuanqi said respectfully. Oh. Zhou Manage's interest was piqued. Could it be that his mythical reputation rating talent was here? Let's go take a look. Your Majesty, please follow me. Zheng Yuanqi nodded. Then, he left the palace with Zhou Manage and flew into the distance. The current Zheng Yuanqi, under the nurturing of the kingdom's rich resources, was already a legendary tier forbidden mage. He was just short of comprehending his own lost skill and becoming a forbidden archmage. Therefore, flying was naturally an extremely simple matter for him. However, Zhou Manage despised he for flying slowly. He grabbed his arm and sensed his surroundings. Then, as if he had sensed an existence, his eyes lit up, and he immediately transmitted away. At the border of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, the Yellow Gold Tier regional territory, Cloudboat City. At this moment, a young girl wearing a Chaos Beast skirt, with light gray skin and facial features that were not very exquisite, was floating in the air with a heroic aura. He looked at Cloudboat City in the distance, as well as the Blazing Sun Kingdom city in the distance. A look of astonishment flashed in his eyes. Is this really the territory of a lord of an ethnicity that has just been established? Even though most of the buildings look very new, they should have been built not long ago. However, looking at the luck phenomenon, it's simply like an old empire-level lord faction with a rich foundation. The light in his eyes changed. He could actually see a phenomenon of providence that ordinary life forms could not see. King of the Blazing Sun. The patriarch said that he was a descendant of the chaos humans who had been left behind in the myriad worlds. Coincidentally, he became the lord of all races and joined this lord of all races competition. He walked the path of battling for the position of the lord of all races. I hope you won't disappoint me and the patriarch. Otherwise, even if it's an order from the patriarch, I want to leave this place. The girl muttered to herself. Chapter 1030 Mythical Reputation Rating Talent. Ning. The dilemma of the chaos human race. At this moment, he sensed something and looked behind him uneasily. I can't stay here for long. They're coming. He became anxious. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he looked into the distance. Two figures appeared out of thin air. One of the figures had a handsome face. He wore the Emperor Dragon robe and carried the regal Sage Dao sword at his waist. His aura was supreme, as if no matter where he went he was a natural emperor. On the other hand, the other person looked gentle, mature, and steady. He had the aura of a high-ranking person. It was obvious that he had been in a high position for a long time and held great power. Miss Ning, this is our Majesty. Zheng Yuanqi introduced with a smile. Greetings, King of the Blazing Sun. Even though Ning was stunned by Zhou Manage's temperament and appearance at the beginning, he quickly concealed his shock and said politely, Hello, Miss Ning. Zhou Manage smiled and nodded. He felt the aura on the other party's body and felt a little emotional. He felt the aura on the other party's body and felt a little emotional. This was the first time he, an awakened chaos human, had seen a second chaos human other than himself. Your Majesty should be able to tell where I came from, right? Miss Ning noticed Zhou Manage's gaze and went straight to the point. It's rare to meet someone from the same race. Zhou Manage first set up a barrier to prevent outsiders from hearing what they were talking about. Then he said with a smile, You are indeed a chaos human. Ning nodded. In the beginning, he was a little uncertain. Now that he heard what he said, he was finally certain. Are you an innate chaos human or an awakened chaos human? Ning asked. I was originally a human from the Cerulean planet. I was just an ordinary human. Later on, he was bestowed with the chaos human bloodline by the Supreme Will. That was how he became a chaos human. Zhou Manage said honestly. In fact, he could have lied to the other party and said that he was an innate chaos human. With his high-tier deity-level advanced grade chaos human bloodline, it was actually not a problem for he to say that he was an innate chaos human. Furthermore, he could also establish a relationship with the other party. However, Zhou Manage did not care to do such a thing. The chaos humans can actually grow to the high-tier deity-level advanced grade and approach the threshold of the true god-tier chaos human bloodline. Ning was shocked. How many people of foreign race bloodlines have you devoured? Zhou Manage smiled and did not answer. Ever since he obtained the chaos humans, he had been devouring the bloodlines of the people of foreign races every day. Especially in the past few days, Bai Yin had led an army to expand her territory. During this process, she had killed countless hostile people of foreign races and obtained a large number of bloodlines. This made Zhou devour thousands of people of foreign race bloodlines almost every day. Coupled with the most important top-notch bloodlines, such as the original spirit race, the Chaos Gods race, and the Myriad Spirit race, if he told the other party about these bloodlines, the other party would probably be shocked. Seeing that Zhou Manage didn't say anything, Yingning didn't ask further. Are you from the ruins of primal chaos? Zhou Manage suddenly asked. How do you know? Yingning was shocked. The Chaos Ruins was the last resting place of the Chaos humans. Its existence was the greatest secret in his heart. Other than the Chaos Gods who had been waiting for an opportunity to kill them, almost no outsiders knew the location of the ruins of chaos. Before he came, he was still thinking about how he should explain his origins to this lord of the chaos human race. He didn't expect the other party to expose his background the moment he opened his mouth. Zhou Manage laughed. At the same time, he had also used his chaotic divine body to make him indestructible. Chaotic divine body, you killed the beast of primordial chaos and absorbed its bloodline to complete your coming-of-age ceremony? Yingning cried out in disbelief. Something like that. Zhou Manage smiled. His main body had only obtained the bloodline of the Chaos Gods from the Lord Shop. The Chaos Gods race had never hunted it before. However, he found it a little strange. The Chaos Gods race was not extinct now. Instead, it was at its peak. As the Lord of the Chaos Gods race, it was normal for him to kill the Chaos Gods race and fulfill his coming-of-age ceremony, right? Why did the other party look like he had never seen the world? The Chaos Will has already died. Right now, the Supreme Will is the ruler of bloodline laws. How did you get your coming-of-age ceremony? Yingning found it even more unbelievable. Hearing this, Zhou Manage slowly frowned. He carefully observed the Chaos human from the ruins of chaos. After a while, he said, You haven't had your coming-of-age ceremony yet? He uttered in surprise. Yes. Yingning replied disappointedly. According to the bloodline inheritance I obtained from the Chaos Beast, the Chaos Beast has been hunting the Chaos humans in the Chaos Ruins. You should have the chance to obtain some Chaos Beast corpses to fulfill your coming-of-age ceremony, right? Zhou Manage was puzzled. If only it were that easy. Yingning smiled bitterly. But ever since the Chaos Will perished and the Supreme Will controlled the nomological origin, we Chaos humans have no way of extracting the Chaos Beast's bloodline, according to the ancient sacrificial ritual. But without the ancient sacrificial ritual, we have to kill hundreds of Chaos Beasts to obtain a loots of the Chaos Beast bloodline. None of the Chaos Beasts who dared to surround and kill us humans of chaos are weak. It's too difficult for the underage Chaos humans to fulfill their coming-of-age ceremony in a group of powerful Chaos Beasts. And most importantly, after the Supreme Will took control of the law origin, it seemed to have modified the bloodline law. Originally, when the Chaos Will was around, when we used the Chaos Beast's bloodline for our coming-of-age ceremony, we could almost fulfill the transformation of our bloodline 100% and complete our coming-of-age ceremony. However, after the Chaos Will dies and the Supreme Will controls the origin of laws, even if we have the bloodline of the Chaos Beast, it's very easy for our bloodline to fail during the coming-of-age ceremony. It's very difficult for us to successfully pass the coming-of-age ceremony. That's exactly why to this day, among the remaining Chaos humans, less than 1 in 100 have completed the coming-of-age ceremony. Moreover, most of them are ancient Chaos humans who have lived since the chaotic era. All of this was done by the Supreme Will. We do not know why the Supreme Will is targeting us like this either. Zhou Manage did not say anything on the surface, but he sighed in his heart. Was there a need to ask? Of course, it was because the version had changed. Do you still think you are the children of the version? Times have changed, my lords. But then there was a problem. Why was not he affected? After absorbing the bloodline of the Chaos Beast, he had easily completed the transformation of his bloodline and ended his coming-of-age ceremony without any obstruction? Zhou Manage thought for a while. In the end, he could only conclude that his Chaos human bloodline was bestowed by the Supreme Will. Therefore, The Supreme will specially open a back door for him to obtain all the abilities of the Chaos human race, including the special authority to successfully fulfill the coming-of-age ceremony of the Chaos human race. Have I taken on a version of the obscure profession in gaming term? Zhou Manage thought to himself. Chapter 1031 Yingning's Crisis. 3 Foreign Race True God Tiers. Zhou Manage shook his head and stopped his thoughts. At this moment, he realized that this high-tier deity-level advanced grade Chaos human had been looking at him. Just as Zhou Manage was about to say something, he saw the other party suddenly kneel down and respectfully say, "Chaos human. Yingning hopes to follow your majesty and serve your majesty. Please allow me to do so." It was obvious that she was not familiar with this unique way of speaking between rulers and ministers when she said these words, showing that she was still not very familiar with them. "Get up, tell me first, why do you want to follow me and become my subordinate?" Zhou Manage didn't agree immediately and questioned instead. He could tell that the other party had a motive for joining him. Even though he had a heaven-defying lord talent like the peaceful times, he was not afraid that the people who joined him would betray him. However, if he knew that a person was approaching him with a purpose, he wouldn't deliberately act dumb. He would definitely ask first, "My lord, am the eldest daughter of the current chaotic patriarch and the chaotic high priest, Haze of Chaos. My father was proficient in divination and sacrifice. He divined that in the current Lord of all races competition, there was a Chaos human lord who performed very well, and was the leader of the lords. He divined that in the current Lord of all races competition, there was a Chaos human lord who performed very well, and was the leader of the lords. Therefore, my king father sent me here to befriend the lord of the Chaos human race with great potential. In other words, your majesty. My king father wants me to marry you and become your woman. This way, your relationship with the Chaos humans will be the most stable. I hope that your majesty and Yingning will give Yingning this opportunity." When Zhou Manage heard Yingning's words, he looked like he had been struck by lightning. Frankly speaking, he had been in the high continent for quite some time, and had come into contact with many women. There were countless women who wanted to climb into his bed. However, Zhou was completely focused on his career, and rarely considered matters of the heart. Therefore, even though he had seen many women in all shapes and sizes, he had only had sex with his wife Leah. Zhou hadn't touched any of the other women, not even Aaliyah and Atli, the elven twins' maids. However, even though he had seen many women, there was really no woman like Yingning, who was so straightforward about being his woman. There were all kinds of forests in the world. Zhou Manage sighed in his heart. "Don't you feel wronged?" Zhou Manage thought for a long time before saying this. "My personal partner is nothing compared to racial revival." Furthermore, Yingning looked at Zhou with shining eyes. Yingning can feel how powerful his majesty is. Your majesty is the strongest among his peers, even stronger than the strongest legendary warrior king of the Chaos humans. No, even among all the recorded Chaos humans in history. You are undoubtedly powerful. If I can become your majesty's woman, even if I am immediately eaten by the Chaos beast, I will never regret it. Even my king father will be proud of me if I can give birth to a child for his majesty, and allow our bloodline to be passed down. Your majesty. Yingning slammed her fist heavily on her chest and said in a deep voice, "Yingning's soul is only willing to beat for you." Zhou Manage recalled that as an ancient and powerful race, the Chaos humans' desire for strength was engraved in their bloodline inheritance after hearing her words. Therefore, Yingning's words could be said to be very sincere and serious. But then again, even though the Chaos humans admired strength, once they set a target as their future man, they would never regret it for the rest of their lives. They would not appear after starting a family and admire strength again. Therefore, the married life of the Chaos humans was still considered harmonious. Just as Zhou Manage was about to say something, he suddenly sensed something and looked into the distance. 3 figures flew over from afar and arrived in front of Zhou and company in the blink of an eye. One of the god spirits had a fat head and ears. His body was completely black, and his eyes were like 2 dark purple vortexes. As for the other god spirit, it was completely pale. Its surface was covered in mysterious black runes, and an extremely long tail was wagging behind him. As for the last god spirit, it had 9 heads. Each head emitted a different nomological aura. Zhou Manage narrowed his eyes and looked at them. These 3 uninvited guests were 3 true god tiers. Furthermore, they were all at the true god tier intermediate grade. He was not considered weak, even among the true god tier. At this moment, they observed at Ying Ning with an expression of venting their anger. Bitch, you really understand how to run. We chased you for more than a dozen worlds before we caught up to you. I didn't expect you to actually come to the high continent. I'd like to see where you can escape to now. The azure-tailed demonic tiger true god, Lai Du, smiled sinisterly. Hurry up and take her down so that we can go back and report. The true god of the Xianzhu clan, Howard, frowned slightly. Look, this declining chaotic tribe member seems to have found a helper. One of the 9-headed snake true gods, Sax, who was emitting the aura of the law of fire, said. Could it be her old flame? The other snake head that emitted a dark aura said in a gloomy voice. Let me smell it, huh? He also has the aura of a chaos human. This fellow is also a chaos human. A snake head emitting boundless poisonous gas on the left said in surprise. Oh, another chaos human? Lai Du was ecstatic. He stared at Zhou Manage and said greedily, what kind of good day is this? We actually encountered 2 chaos humans in a row. But didn't the wanted poster only say that we need to capture a female chaos human? If we take he down, we will definitely be able to obtain more rewards from that lord. Even though Howard was also very surprised, he was also very calm. However, when he carefully observed Zhou Manage and Zheng Yuanqi's auras, and discovered that one of them was at the low-tier deity level intermediate grade, and the other was a legendary tier ordinary human, he was immediately relieved. Such an ant-like character, he could scare them to death with a snap of his fingers. Run! Your Majesty, they are all true god tier intermediate grade experts. You can't deal with them. They'll stay here for a while. Return to your territory first. As long as you're in your territory, they probably won't dare to attack you casually because of the Supreme Agreement. When Ying Ning saw the 3 true god tier enemies coming over, her face suddenly turned pale. However, he could no longer care about his own safety. He immediately turned his head and shouted at Zhou Manage. In his eyes, this king of the blazing sun was already the wish for the chaos humans to restore their former glory. He could be captured by the other party, or even die at the other party's hands. However, nothing could happen to the king of the blazing sun otherwise. If anything happened to the king of the blazing sun, even if he survived, he would rue it for the rest of his life. Chapter 1032 3 Palm Strikes. 3 true god tier god spirits died. Facing Ying Ning's words, Zheng Yuanqi, who was beside Zhou Manage, was carefree and not nervous at all. As His Majesty's closest and most trusted minister, he naturally knew His Majesty's abilities. He knew that nothing would happen to him, even if he faced 3 enemies at the true god tier level. Zhou Manage frowned slightly. Seriously, fighting is Zhou Fight's job. I'm in management. Zhou Manage muttered. The clones had inherited Zhou's different personalities. If Zhou Fight was cold and good at fighting, Zhou Manage liked peace and dealt with political matters. He didn't like to fight. However, in order to resolve the current situation, he still drew the regal sage Dao sword at his waist. Even though he didn't like fighting, it didn't mean that he wasn't good at it. Seeing this scene, Ying Ning couldn't help but feel anxious. She had already heard many legends about this King of the Blazing Sun on the way here. She had even heard that King of the Blazing Sun had once defeated a true god tier as a legendary tier. After that, he had advanced to a low-level true god tier, and even killed several true god tier legends. However, as the saying went, what one heard was false, and what one saw was true. She actually didn't really believe it. As a chaos human with a deep foundation, he knew the difference between a true god level and a non-true god tier existence, even though he had declined. How could it be possible for the 2 of them to defeat each other? Furthermore, even if the legend of the King of the Blazing Sun killing several true god tiers was true, now was not the time. These were three powerful true God-tier intermediate-grade experts. He wasn't the true God-tier elementary-grade expert that King of the Blazing Sun had defeated in the past. There was no comparison between the two at all. At the same time, when Lai Du and the other true God-tiers of the people of foreign races saw Zhou manage draw his sword, they immediately sneered. They couldn't be bothered to waste their breath, and were about to deal with this low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade god spirit. However, in the next second, a terrifying pressure erupted from Zhou manage's body and swept in all directions in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the area within a radius of 50,000 kilometers seemed to have been stopped by time, and it became silent. At this moment, everything in the world seemed to have lost its luster. Only Zhou manage had become the only god spirit in the world. Ying Ning, Lai Du, Howard and Sax looked at Zhou manage in shock, as if they were looking at the only true god tier in the world, as though they were all false gods. You're clearly at the low-tier deity level intermediate grade, but you suddenly advanced to the true god tier intermediate grade. Sax gritted his teeth and looked at Zhou manage. You're the common people's regal? The other two true god tiers' expressions changed. They had naturally heard of the common people's regal. That was a ruthless person who had killed several true god tiers. Common people's regal? Howard hurriedly shouted. We are working for a high-level bloodline race. Are you sure you want to offend us and the high-level bloodline race behind us for a chaos human prisoner? Hand this chaos human woman over to us. We can pretend that this never happened. So what if it's a high-level bloodline race? Zhou manage held the regal sage Dao sword in his hand and pointed the tip of the sword at the three true god tiers of the people of foreign races. He said calmly, I only know that the woman you're chasing is my subject. You arrest my subjects in front of me. Do you think I'm an incompetent person? You arrest my subjects in front of me. Do you think I'm an incompetent person? Zhou manage said calmly. Let them come to the high continent to talk to me. Let's see if we'll give them face. As soon as these words were spoken, Zheng Yuanqi looked at Zhou manage with reverence. Ying Ning looked at Zhou manage with infatuation. She would have wanted to give herself to him immediately, if it wasn't, because the situation was special. As for Lai Du and the other two true god tier, their expressions turned ugly. They never expected that even though they had already made it clear that they had the support of a high-level bloodline race, this King of the Blazing Sun still didn't know what was good for him. Did he really think that he was invincible? Common people's regal. Sax's tone was cold as he looked at Zhou manage with a pair of cold eyes. I've heard of the regal's reputation. I really want to see what you're capable of. Zhou manage didn't say anything. He just waved his hand. Such a contemptuous gesture immediately enraged the three true god tiers. However, at their level, the angrier they were, the calmer they became. Let me try the methods of a regal. Lai Du clasped his hands together. Boom! A layer of dark purple space extended out from behind him. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped an area of 1,000,000 kilometers, making this place a world of its own. It also became the battlefield for the four true god tiers. Unfortunately, Ying Ning and Zheng Yuanqi were also dragged into it. When Zhou manage saw this, he pulled them and the surrounding innocent life forms into his inner world to prevent them from being undeserved. How kind! As expected of the common people's regal bestowed by the supreme will. Howard mocked. At this moment, Lai Du had already flown into the sky and suddenly opened its mouth at Zhou manage. Boom! Sharp spatial blades shot towards Zhou manage like endless waves. Even a true god tier wouldn't dare to face such a powerful spatial blade head-on. However, Zhou manage's expression was calm. He raised his hand and pushed. In the next second, the palm phantom he pushed out quickly expanded to more than 50,000 kilometers in size. Half of the spatial world was blocked by his palm. At this moment, his palm seemed to have transformed into a vast starry sky, with countless star divine kingdoms hanging high in it. It's common people's regal's Lord nomological ultimate technique, myriad methods star palm. Howard and Sax's expressions changed again. Now common people's regal's name resounded throughout the myriad worlds. Therefore, much of his information was widely circulated among the upper echelons of the myriad races, and some super experts. And among them, the most famous was the nomological skill he used to increase his strength king. The second was naturally the nomological skill he used to defeat many true gods, myriad methods star palm. They didn't anticipate it either. It was fine if this common people's regal didn't move, but once he moved, it was actually his ultimate move. Lai Dus' expression was also very serious. Even though the common people's regal used his own ultimate technique, it wasn't the spatial law skill, he used sky-splitting infinite slash. The same? Next, it would depend on the true strength of both sides. However, what happened next made Lai Du despair. After the nomological attacks of both sides collided, Zhou Manage's myriad methods star palm actually easily devoured Lai Dus' heaven-splitting limitless slash with absolute advantage. Then it devoured Lai Du at an unrestrained speed. No. Lai Dus' confront was filled with fear. He turned around and wanted to escape, but he realized that the space around him was similar to a swamp, making he unable to move. Therefore, he could only watch as the vast myriad methods star palm rapidly approached him, until it completely devoured him. This, Hauer and Sachs' expressions changed. They looked at Zhou Manage, and were about to say something when they saw Zhou Manage slap them again without hesitation. No. Hauer and Sachs were true god tiers who had become true gods by walking the path of the wind nomological laws, while the other was true god tiers who had become true gods by walking the path of the fusion of 9 nomological laws. However, in the confront of Zhou Manage's shocking palm, they felt like ants. Not merely were they unable to escape, they could not also think of resisting. It was as if any resistance was useless under this palm. I'm afraid merely a true god tier advanced grade can barely escape this palm. Common people's regal already has the power of a top true god tier. We shouldn't have provoked such a peerless true god tier. This thought flashed through the minds of the two deities before they were reduced to ashes by the two palms. Only a vast number of spoils of war that emitted various colors were left. They were taken away by Zhou Manage and stored in the king's treasure vault. Chapter 1033 Ranking. Demon Flood Dragon Race. Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. The world quietened down after 3 palm strikes. Ying Ning looked at the calm Zhou Manage in a daze, as if he had not done anything. What had just happened? Where are the 3 true god tiers of the people of foreign races? Why did they disappear after 3 strikes? Are you swatting a fly here? Zhang Yuanqi, who was beside Zhou Manage, was also shocked when he saw that His Majesty had easily killed 3 true god tiers of the people of foreign races. He knew that His Majesty could deal with the 3 true god tiers of the people of foreign races, but he did not expect it to be resolved so easily. His Majesty's strength had increased again. Zhang Yuanqi lamented and thought happily. At this moment, as the person involved, Zhou Manage looked unsurprised by what he had done. His strength had reached true god tier intermediate grade after he used King to increase his strength. On this basis, using a ridiculously powerful Lord Law skill, like the myriad methods star palm, would naturally allow his combat strength to reach the level of a true god tier advanced grade. In addition, the true god tier divine artifacts enhanced his strength, as well as other enhancements on him. Few true god tier cultivators were his match as long as the master god tier did not appear. It was naturally easy for him to defeat 3 true god tier intermediate grade experts with 3 palm strikes. Zhou Manage looked at Ying Ning. This king allows you to join this king's blazing sun kingdom. As for the chaos humans, I will naturally take the time to make a trip to the chaos ruins, when I feel that I have enough ability. Calm down, he said. Thank you, Your Majesty. Ying Ning was moved to tears. Zhou Manage nodded, and the 3 of them returned to the blazing sun kingdom. On the way back, Zhou Manage also checked the spoils of war of the 3 true god tiers of the people of foreign races. However, because they did not have any true god tier divine artifacts on them, they naturally did not drop any master god divine artifacts. They only left 18 true god tier divine artifacts, and some true god tier and master god tier materials for Zhou. Other than that, the most precious items were the 3 master god tier intermediate grade hero inheritance manuals, and the 3 book of the god spirit manuals dropped by the true god tiers of the people of foreign races. Zhou put it away solemnly, preparing to reward the talents he valued, or the subordinates and subjects with master god tier level potential in the future. Time passed quickly. Zhou put it away solemnly, preparing to reward the talents he valued, or the subordinates and subjects with master god tier level potential in the future. At this moment Zhou Fight, who was billions of kilometers away from the Blazing Sun Kingdom, was leading his army towards the territory of a people of foreign race, called the Demon-Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. The Demon-Flood Dragon Sacred Sea was the territory of a race called the Demon-Flood Dragon Clan. Previously, they had also participated in preventing the humans from retreating to the primordial world's people of foreign races. Furthermore, they did not choose to surrender. That was why they were chosen by Zhou Fight as the targets of today's extermination. The Demon-Flood Dragon race, an amphibious race. This race has always had friction with the human race. They often use the river to swim to the human territory and hide in the rivers, lakes, and seas inside the human territory to stir up trouble. The Demon-Flood Dragon race likes to hide under the river the most. When the humans are fishing above the river and sea, they will suddenly appear and overturn the boats before eating the humans who fall into the water. Even water elemental superhumans of the human race can't defeat the superhumans of the Demon-Flood Dragon race underwater, since it is their home ground. Therefore, the Demon-Flood Dragon race has always been the enemy of the people of foreign races that ordinary humans hate and fear the most. In the Demon-Flood Dragon race's civilization, there is currently only one unified Demon-Flood Dragon race empire on the High Continent. It's called the Holy Flood Dragon Empire. In addition to having an extraordinary body system unique to their race, the Holy Flood Dragon Empire has developed a powerful marine civilization that belongs exclusively to their race. It's called the Demon-Flood Dragon Sea Ship Civilization. Under the Demon-Flood Dragon Sea Ship Civilization, their naval military strength can be ranked in the top 1,000 among all the people of foreign races with empire-level lords. Zhou Fight was deep in thought. Currently, his territory has developed in all aspects except for the development in the oceans. The Blazing Sun Kingdom had risen from the desert territory and had never come into contact with that. Even though he later took over the territories of the three human empires, most of these territories were land territories. Only a very small portion was inland lakes. There was no chance of developing the military strength of the sea. His Blazing Sun Kingdom's only fleet in the ocean was inherited from the three former human empires. There were only more than 1 million kingdom-level warships, and they were extremely ordinary. Even among the kingdom-level lord factions, they could only be considered ordinary, let alone among the kingdom-level lord factions. It could be seen that the Yellow Emperor and company didn't want to invest too much effort in this aspect back then. If it was an ordinary kingdom-level lord faction, they probably wouldn't even have the intention to attack such an enemy. The environment on the battlefield is too disadvantaged after all. It's completely unsuitable for our army to fight. The army under my command has no expertise in fighting on the sea. With the same number of soldiers, it will probably be very difficult for my soldiers to gain in superiority in war. Instead, we will suffer heavy losses. Nonetheless, I have too many soldiers. Zhou Fight chuckled. He now had a total of 600 billion troops under him. What kind of concept was this? According to the intelligence of the Heavenly Map Army, there were only about 6 billion Demon-Flood Dragon race soldiers left. This was because they only fought underwater. When Zhou's soldiers stopped them back then, they could not cause too many casualties. Otherwise, this number would only increase. Zhou had more than 100 times more soldiers than them. Furthermore, they were all elites of the empire-level soldier type. With so many soldiers, it would not be long before the sea level of the Demon-Flood Dragon Sacred Sea rose by a few centimeters if every soldier spat into the sea. If they were to cast spells on their Demon-Flood Dragon Sacred Sea, they would only need a short day to blast the entire Demon-Flood Dragon Sacred Sea into a depression, without a single drop of water. The Demon-Flood Dragon clan is nothing to worry about. Let's hope that they know their salt. Zhou Feit considered to himself. Otherwise, he could only avenge the humans who had died in the demon flood dragon race's mouths in the past. I'm such a saint, so nice to even enemies. Zhou Feit thought. That's not right. This is clearly instructions from the main body. I'm just carrying out the main Bodhi's orders. I'm actually just a ruthless tool of genocide. Zhou Feit could not help but laugh. Then, with a thought, a list appeared in front of him. It was the faction points ranking. First place, Human Lord of the Blazing Sun 79 billion faction points. Second place, Original Spirit Race, True Lord, 5,196 million faction points. Third place, Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord, 4,255 million faction points. Fourth place, Myriad Spirit Race, Spiritual Venerable Lord, 4,112 million faction points. Fourth place, Chaos God's Race, Great One Lord, 4,028 million faction points. Finally, there's a gap. A smile appeared on Zhou's face. Due to the increase in strength, they had many targets for destroying through the Eye of the Heavens Anger today. In the past, they could only eliminate about 30 Eye of the Heavens Anger targets in a morning. Today it had doubled to 60. And because of that, they had obtained a total of 2,350 million faction points from the target of the Eye of the Heavens Anger. I still can't be careless. Continue with my original goal, and increase the gap between me and the second place to more than 1 billion faction points. Zhou Feit considered to himself. Today was the 17th day of the King of 10,000 Kings event. The event was more than halfway through. The remaining 13 days weren't long, but it wasn't short either. It should allow him to widen the gap between him and the original spirit race by 10 billion points. At this moment, he felt the galaxy leader stop. Your Majesty, we've arrived at our destination, the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. When Ya's soft tone sounded, Zhou Feit nodded. Then he stood up and moved towards the door of the spaceship. Chapter 1034 Demon Flood Dragon Clan Requests for Help. Zhou Feit flew out of the spaceship and floated above the clouds, looking down at the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. Below him was an endless dark purple sea. It looked strangely beautiful. Above the sea was a large number of strange purple sea buildings built by the Demon Flood Dragon race. According to the information, those were marine military buildings and some resource development buildings established by the Demon Flood Dragon race. He stared at the bottom of the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. Soon, he could clearly see that 10,000 meters below the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea were large clusters of buildings with unique civilization styles. They were built on the bottom of the sea, and there were many types of buildings. There were small subject buildings and tall and majestic civilization buildings. In these buildings, there were trillions of Demon Flood Dragon clan members living and wandering. Most of them were wearing armor. Even the ordinary subjects were the same. Not only that, Zhou Feit also discovered that the buildings around the Demon Flood Dragon clan had also been temporarily strengthened, and many war weapons had been added. Is this preparation for us? It seems that they have a premonition that we are coming. Zhou Feit thought to himself. However, his expression was very calm. So what if they had a premonition? The outcome of the war will not change. Bai Yun, he said. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun immediately flew in front of Zhou Feit and said respectfully, let's declare war. As usual, after dispersing the troops, we'll give them one last chance to surrender. Zhou Feit said, Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun nodded solemnly. Then, he immediately flew high in the sky, high above the 1,000 galaxy ships. All soldiers, listen to my orders, Legion Commander. Leave Galaxy immediately and set up the troop arrangement here. Bai Yun shouted. Yes, sir. An earth-shattering roar came from all the galaxy. Then, a large number of soldiers surged out of each galaxy like a river and swiftly began to form a troop arrangement in the sky. Soon, more than 60 billion soldiers stood neatly under the troop arrangement of all the generals and god spirits. The huge sky was completely blocked by the soldiers at this moment. There was no sunlight at all. They could only see the magic power light emitted by the soldiers, and the divine power light emitted by the god spirits. Other than that, they had also set up more than 3,000 god spirit level military formations. These military formations could be said to have everything from low-tier deity level advanced grade to high-tier deity level advanced grade. In addition to the small god Sura myriad spirit army formation and soldier god army, there was also the high-tier deity advanced grade, supreme fire god army, high-tier deity elementary grade, hellfire king army, mid-tier deity advanced grade, moon worship spirit army, mid-tier deity intermediate grade, moon god descends. The other military formations were captured from the fire cry human race and the moon demon race. After practicing in the time world for a period of time, the soldiers mastered all the formations of the people of foreign races and realized them on the current battlefield. This shocking scene immediately attracted the attention of the demon flood dragon race below the demon flood dragon sacred sea. When the demon flood dragon race members saw these 600 billion soldiers, many of them were instantly frightened out of their wits. They hurriedly returned to report to the higher-ups of the demon flood dragon race. Soon, some legendary tier, god spirit, and even true god tier experts of the demon flood dragon race appeared on the surface of the sea. When they saw the 600 billion soldiers, the 3,000 odd spirits of the military formation that exuded the aura of god spirits, and at least 3 powerhouses with the aura of true god tier, their faces instantly turned extremely ugly and terrified. Didn't they say that the Blazing Sun Kingdom only has 100 billion soldiers? This is a fucking 100 billion soldiers? The demon flood dragon race true god, Karu cursed angrily. What do we do now? Another true god of the demon flood dragon race, Hielos asked. Oh, go up and stall for a while. Quickly contact the shadow race and tell them that the common people's regal has already led an army to our demon flood dragon race's territory. As for the military strength, I'll tell you the truth. Karu gritted his teeth. He wanted to say the number of fake soldiers and trick them into coming over. However, he was also afraid that the other party would misjudge the strength of the common people's regal after hearing about the number of soldiers and the number of god spirits. Then, he would not bring enough troops over and would be wiped out. Then this lie would be meaningless. In that case, it was naturally best to tell the truth. But what if the other party doesn't come over after hearing about the military strength? With common people's regal's strength, I'm afraid even the shadow race wouldn't dare to provoke him easily, right? Hielos asked hesitantly. The other party had brought such a terrifying army over. Even the Shadow Clan would probably hesitate when facing such an enemy, right? They will definitely come, and they'll come with everything they have. Karu uttered firmly. The common people's regal sees us as enemies, and can't wait to exterminate all of us. This is already something that all living beings in the Supreme Continent know. Do you think the Shadow Clan doesn't know? They only want us to be their shield for the time being, and give them time to prepare to deal with common people's regal in the future. But there's no time to prepare them now. In such a short period of time, common people's regal's strength has developed to such a terrifying extent. If we give the common people's regal more time to develop, let alone the Shadow Tribe, even the people of Foreign Race Alliance, led by Uriel, might not be able to deal with this common people's regal. The Shadow Clan is running out of time. As long as there's nothing wrong with their heads, they will know that they have to get rid of the common people's regal before he becomes stronger. Otherwise, they will definitely lose in the end. Therefore, after you contact the Shadow Tribe, not only do you have to tell them the truth about common people's regal's strength, it's even better to exaggerate the threat of common people's regal and let them realize the seriousness of the problem. This way, the Shadow Tribe will realize the threat of the common people's regal and help us with all their might. I understand. Yellow's nodded. Then, he returned to the base of the sacred sea and arrived in front of the spatial teleportation array without hesitation. Activate the teleportation array. I want to go to the Shadow Sacred Hall. Hielos instructed the soldiers guarding the spatial teleportation array. Your Excellency, the space has been sealed by an unknown force, so the spatial teleportation array can't be used for the time being. The soldier uttered respectfully. Yellow's frowned slightly. This common people's regal's preparations were quite comprehensive. You can't communicate? Yes, Your Excellency. Our communication signals in the entire Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea have been blocked. The other party's technology level far exceeds ours. Yellow's expression turned ugly. Was this common people's regal really a lord who had just risen to power? Why had they developed so quickly? Not only did they already have so many soldiers, god spirits and god spirit level military formations, but even the Machina race's civilization system-like technology had developed so well. Can the Myriad Water Mirror Palace be used normally? Yellows asked. The Myriad Water Mirror Palace is temporarily unaffected. The soldier replied. Take me there. Yellows heaved a sigh of relief and said, Yes, Your Excellency. Please follow me. Yellows nodded and followed his subordinates to the Myriad Water Mirror Palace. Chapter 1035 The Mad Attack of Over 200 Billion Forbidden Mages. The Myriad Water Mirror Palace looked like a resplendent white jade crystal palace from afar. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that the crystal palace was made of legendary tier crystal spirit jade. After walking in, one would discover rows and rows of water mirrors erected in this magnificent palace. The front of each water mirror displayed a unique scene of the foreign waters. This was the unique ability of the Demon Flood Dragon race's building, Myriad Water Mirror Palace. It could use the water mirror to communicate with any place with water that was marked by the Palace of Water Mirrors. Life forms could travel between the two water regions that were billions of kilometers apart through the water mirror. It was equivalent to a water attribute teleportation array. B0XO. Comet was different from the spatial attribute. Therefore, the methods that could stop spatial teleportation were useless against the Myriad Water Mirror Palace. Only treasures that countered the water attribute could affect the Myriad Water Mirror Palace. Yellows walked to the water mirror that led to the Shadow King city. He stepped into it and disappeared without hesitation. On the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea, at this moment, Bai Yin had already sent someone to announce the contents of the surrender letter. After Karu heard this, his expression immediately turned solemn. Then, he took the initiative to fly into the sky and stopped at an appropriate distance from the blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers. I am the true god of the Demon Flood Dragon race, Karu. I request to see your lord, Your Excellency the common people's regal. Oh, Zhou Feit's calm voice came from the sky. Why are you looking for me? Are you prepared to accept our persuasion? Your Excellency common people's regal. Karu braced himself and said, I think there's still room for negotiation between our two races. Why must we go to the point where we're at war today? Once the war starts, we don't know how many casualties there will be on both sides. We have to be careful. Why bother? Zhou Feit said softly, but his voice was extremely cold. Back then, when you sent your clansmen to infiltrate our human territory and kill and devour us, why didn't you think so? Back then, when we humans wanted to retreat to the primordial world, why didn't you think so when you joined the enemy and stopped us from retreating to the primordial world? Why didn't you think so when we sent out the surrender letter? Now that we've come knocking on your door, you come out and say such things, hoping we'll agree. What is wrong? Is this king easy to talk to? Towards the end, Zhou Feit's voice was filled with coldness. Wait, that's not what I meant. I meant, Karu hurriedly said, but at this moment Zhou Feit spoke again. Are you stalling for time? Let me think. You should be waiting for your ally, the Shadow Race, to save your Demon Flood Dragon race, right? Then why don't you think about why this king knew that you were connected to the Shadow Race, but still came here to destroy your clan? Karu's body trembled when he heard that. Bai Yun, it seems that they are unwilling to surrender. Do it. Before the Shadow Race's reinforcements arrive, exterminate all the demonic Abyss tribe members who are unwilling to surrender. Then we'll take care of our guests. They were one of the 5 main people of foreign races that stopped the humans from retreating to the primordial world. We have to treat them well. Zhou Feit ordered. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun said respectfully, and then ordered loudly. All forbidden mages, listen to my orders and cast a forbidden spell on the demon-flood dragon's sacred sea, until you kill all the demon-flood dragons who are unwilling to surrender. All Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers, listen to my orders. Protect our forbidden mage, and kill all enemies who dare to invade, or want to escape. Yes, more than 200 billion forbidden mages began to chant forbidden spells, and cast them, at the demon-flood dragon, sacred sea below, accompanied by the furious roars of billions of soldiers. From the Black Iron Tier forbidden spell, Wind and Fire overturning the heavens, to the low-tier deity level forbidden spell, World Destruction Fall. They were all very powerful. Even the weakest Black Iron Tier forbidden spell was comparable to a Diamond Tier spell. A forbidden spell? No, it was a forbidden curse. This was the power of forbidden spells. All kinds of forbidden spells descended from the sky in the blink of an eye and landed in the demon-flood dragon sacred sea, causing a huge explosion and extremely widespread pollution inside and outside the sea. After the explosion dissipated, Karu and the other members of the demon-flood dragon clan were shocked to discover that the sea level of the demon-flood dragon sacred sea had actually fallen by more than 10 meters under the first round of forbidden spells of the Blazing Sun Kingdom's army. Could a true god be secretly attacking? Otherwise, even if their Blazing Sun Kingdom has a lot of people, they shouldn't be able to unleash such power in one round. Karu said in shock. No true god tiers attacked. It was all these soldiers who attacked. At most, there were a few low-level god spirits mixed in. Another true god tier of the demon-flood dragon race stared at the Blazing Sun Kingdom army in the sky with his purple compound eyes. His expression was very ugly. The reason why these humans can release such powerful attacks seems to exist because they are all Imperial-level soldiers. Moreover, they are mage-type soldiers that can unleash extremely powerful attacks. Under the attack of these hundreds of billions of Empire-level soldier types, even us true god tiers have to temporarily avoid them. What? Karu was even more shocked. He looked at the orderly formation of Blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers in the sky with a look of disbelief. They're all Empire-level soldier types? How is this possible? Even though that was what he asked, he was almost certain that what the other party said was true. This was because the other party was a true god expert who was extremely good at observation and summary. Even one of his law skills was a nomological ability that assisted in observing the other party's background. The facts he observed generally couldn't exist wrong. Then what should we do? Could it exist that we can only watch as the other party uses such a method to kill our demonic Flood Dragon Clan's clansmen? Dickens, you're the supreme wise man of our demon Flood Dragon Clan. You must have thought of a solution, right? Karu stared at him and asked. Dickens looked at Karu for a long time and finally nodded. I did contemplate of a way. What is that? Surrender. Dickens spoke in calmly. Surrender? Do you realize what you're talking about? You're telling me that you want to surrender at a time like this? The Yellows just went to the Shadow Race to find help, and you want to surrender now? Karu spoke with an ugly expression. The Shadow Race won't come. The Yellows won't arrive back either. Dickens spoke calmly. Why? Karu was stunned. Because the Shadow Race can't defeat the current common people's regal in a one-on-one situation. As a diplomat, I've visited the upper echelons of the Shadow Race to comprehend their personalities and thoughts. After hearing the news from Hielos, they definitely won't act rashly. Instead, they will gather all the helpers they can. With full confidence, they will carry out a decisive battle against the Blazing Sun Kingdom and eliminate it in one fell swoop. And the sacrifice of our demon Flood Dragon Clan will only become a reason to start a war with the Blazing Sun Kingdom. As for Hielos, Dickens chuckled, that guy is even more afraid of death than me. In addition, the Shadow Race won't let this true god tear off either. I guess he has probably become the worshipper of the Shadow Race's true god tier by now. Karu felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Chapter 1036 Use the 10,000 Spirit Saint. Dickens' allegiance. I see. Is that why you want to surrender? Karoo lowered his head and said in a low voice, That's right. Dickens chuckled and looked at the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom in the sky, and the majestic figure higher up. I can no longer wait for the shadow race. If I don't surrender now, I will definitely die in the hands of the true gods of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. I don't have any other choice. I see. What a pity. Karoo's voice was calm a second ago, but in the next second, it suddenly became fierce. He suddenly stretched out the sharp claws of the flood dragon and grabbed Dickens' heart. This claw was exerted with all its might, and even contained the power of laws. However, when he penetrated the other party's heart, his expression turned ugly again. This was because he felt that he had grabbed nothing. He looked at Dickens. Dickens' body, which had been clawed through his heart, suddenly became transparent. Immediately after, his body turned into a pool of water and fell into the sea below, disappearing quickly. Karoo suddenly looked up at the sky. His gaze passed through the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom and looked at the highest point. Then, his expression turned even uglier. Dickens knelt on one knee in front of the human lord and said respectfully, Greetings, Your Majesty. I'm the true god of raging waves and vortex, Dickens. Welcome to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. The human lord sat on a throne that emitted 4 colors of light and smiled. Dickens! Karoo roared at the sky. The hatred and anger in his voice even exceeded his hatred and anger towards the Blazing Sun Kingdom. At this moment, his expression suddenly changed as he looked down. The seawater kept surging in the sea below. A large amount of dark purple demon flood dragon blood floated up from the depths of the sea, covering the surface of the sea with large amounts of dark purple demon flood dragon blood. Karoo hurriedly looked into the depths of the sea, at the sea city territory of the demon flood dragon race. In the demon flood dragon race's city territory, trillions of demon flood dragon race members were actually fighting internally. All of them were fighting extremely bloody, and every move they made wanted to kill the other party. When Karoo saw this scene, he immediately thought of another legendary about the common people's regal. The legendary common people's regal was born a lord of war. He had unparalleled talent and charm in war. Most of them would want to surrender. They would even suddenly turn against him in war and slash their weapons at their former comrades. As long as he fought an enemy, most of them would have the mentality of surrendering. They would even suddenly turn against him in war and slash their weapons at their former comrades. However, even so, he had gotten the psychic masters in the race to collectively cast a psychic protection spell on the demon flood dragon race soldiers to prevent such a thing from happening. However, he never expected that even though he had made preparations in advance, his preparations were still useless. What he feared happened. Damn it. Karoo couldn't care less about the Blazing Sun Kingdom army in the sky, and hurriedly flew down to the sea. A few minutes ago, just as more than 200 billion forbidden mages collectively released forbidden curses at the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea, Zoophyte also released the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord talent immediately. An invisible fluctuation covered the entire Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea in the blink of an eye. When Zoophyte saw this scene, he could not help but click his tongue. It had to be known that the entire Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea was already comparable to the domain of the human race. It had more than 7,000 trillion square kilometers of territory, which was about the size of the sun surrounding Earth. Such a large area was actually covered by the 10,000 Spirit Saint. The mythical tier Lord talent was indeed abnormal. But I like it. Only then did he look at the text prompt triggered by the Lord talent. Prompt. You have activated your mythical tier unique Lord talent, 10,000 Spirit Saint. All spirits see you as a supreme saint and long to follow you. Lord talent notification 1. There are approximately 621 trillion ordinary demon flood dragon race members, 2,035,697,896 black iron tier demon flood dragon race soldiers, 525,607,805 green bronze tier demon flood dragon race soldiers, 312,169,630 white silver tier demon flood dragon race soldiers, 122,529,680 yellow gold tier demon flood dragon race soldiers. 30,417,960 white platinum tier demon flood dragon race soldiers. 10,087,805 diamond tier demon flood dragon race soldiers. 5,029,608 extraordinary tier demon flood dragon race soldiers. 2,052,500 epic tier demon flood dragon race soldiers. 322,050 legendary tier demon flood dragon race soldiers. 12 low-tier deity level demon flood dragon race god spirits. 5 mid-tier deity level demon flood dragon race god spirits. 2 high-tier deity level demon flood dragon race god spirits broke away from their lords and became your loyal followers. Lord Talent Notification 2. You have obtained a spellcaster, Lovis, legendary tier advanced grade. Zhou Fight gazed at the 10,000 Spirit Saints text notification, and a smile appeared on his face again. As expected of the only mythical tier 10,000 Spirit Saint, just the ordinary participants of the Demon Flood Dragon race had directly induced an insight defection of more than 621 trillion. Even the Demon Flood Dragon soldiers with extraordinary tier powers had been incited by him to join insight defection. There were 3,043,914,934 of them. Even though this number was not much for the total military strength of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, these were all troops formed from combat power, and they had a promising future. The thing that made him the happiest was that the 10,000 Spirit Saint had returned with 19 god spirits, who had instigated insight defection. Currently, the military strength under his command, if counted as the military strength of the Star Alliance, had already reached 620 billion. The number of god spirits had already reached 651. Not bad, not bad. Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction. At this moment, a demon flood dragon race god spirit flew up from below. After Geralt stopped it and inspected it, he brought it safely to Zhou Fight. Your Majesty, this true god tier of the demon flood dragon race is called Dickens. He has already left the Holy Flood Dragon Empire and wants to join our Blazing Sun Kingdom. Geralt said respectfully. After hearing Geralt's words, Dickens knelt on one knee in front of Zhou Fight and said respectfully, True god of raging waves and vortex, Dickens greets your Majesty. When Zhou Fight heard the notification of the other party joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom, he nodded slightly and said, Welcome to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. I have some information about the Demon Flood Dragon race and the Shadow race that I want to report to your Majesty. Dickens immediately uttered again. Tell me. Zhou Fight gazed at him. This was an act of loyalty, but he was not surprised. Instead, he admired it very much. Dickens seems to be a smart deserter. Yes. Upon hearing this, Dickens immediately told Zhou Fight everything he knew. At the same time, under the joint attack of the 10,000 Spirit Saint and more than 200 billion forbidden mages, the Demon Flood Dragon race quickly fell into a disadvantage on the battlefield. A few true god tiers of the Demon Flood Dragon race wanted to make a move to turn the tide, but under the counterattacks of Geralt, Kika, true god Shenghua, and the other true god tiers, their attacks quickly became meaningless. They even fell into a life-and-death crisis. When Karu saw this scene, he instantly became desperate. At this moment, he had already received news from Hielos. The other party uttered in a very guilty tone that the Shadow race no longer planned to send troops to support the Demon Flood Dragon race. Furthermore, he had already joined the Shadow race and became a true god of the Shadow race. Everything was as Dickens had expected. The Demon Flood Dragon race has lost. Karu had already seen the outcome of this combat, even though the war was not over yet. Chapter 1037 Demon Flood Dragon Race Building. The Water God Tower. At this moment, the advantage on the battlefield had completely leaned towards the Blazing Sun Kingdom. The forbidden mages who had fought for the first time displayed their incomparably terrifying battlefield destructive power as soon as they appeared, causing all the members of the Demon Flood Dragon clan and the people of foreign races who were watching the battle in secret to tremble in fear. In particular, the unlimited supply of mental recovery potions and energy recovery potions made forbidden mages, who had instinctively only used forbidden spells once, become forbidden-level machine guns. This made the combat strength of an Empire-level soldier type, like the forbidden mage, almost catch up to the combat strength of a Divine Kingdom soldier type. We have to re-evaluate the Lord's power of the common people's regal. Not only is he extremely powerful, even the soldiers under him are not something ordinary soldiers can compare to. The 600 billion troops of the common people's regal are comparable to the trillions of kingdom-level soldier types of other lord factions. This is too shocking. How did the common people's regal develop? How did they silently accumulate such a shocking military force? The various factions that were secretly watching the battle were shocked by Zhou's 600 billion soldiers. Compared to that, even the newly promoted true god of the Blazing Sun Kingdom seemed to have become inconspicuous. After an unknown period of time, the sound of the forbidden spell in the sky above the demon-fled dragon, Sacred Sea, gradually calmed down. When Zhou Fight looked down again, he saw that the entire demon-fled dragon Sacred Sea had become calm. In fact, he could sense that there seemed to be no life form in the demon-fled dragon Sacred Sea. Only the countless corpses of the demon-fled dragon race floating in the sea, and the depths of the sea were left, proving the horror of the forbidden spell. Your Majesty, the members of the devil-fled dragon clan have disappeared. Legion Commander Wu is currently leading the soldiers of the Heavenly Map Army to search for traces of these hidden demon-fled dragon clan members. A solemn-looking general flew up and reported to Zhou Fight. Zhou Fight narrowed his eyes slightly. Disappeared? Could all the members of the demon-fled dragon clan have been wiped out by the forbidden mage? No, impossible. Even though the consecutive attacks of the forbidden spells in the past few hours had killed most of the demonic fled dragon clan members, who were unwilling to surrender, it was definitely not to the extent of exterminating all the demonic fled dragon clan members. You have some tricks up your sleeve. It's finally getting a little challenging. Zhou Fight chuckled. The current accident didn't make he feel defeated. Instead, it piqued his interest. If a race did not have mysterious means to protect themselves, they would not have survived until today. As long as he destroyed them, their methods would fall into his hands in a higher form. This was the confidence of the King of Loots. Just as he was about to get up and do something, he saw Dickens, who had just surrendered, step forward. Your Majesty, I know where these demon-fled dragon race members are hiding, he said calmly. Tell me about it. Zhou Fight was in no hurry to take action, even though he already had a rough solution in mind. Your Majesty, the reason why these hundreds of trillions of Flame Clan members suddenly disappeared is because of the construction effect of a building of the demon-fled dragon race, called the Water God Tower. The effect of this building is that it can transform all the members of the demon-fled dragon clan into the water of the sea, and fuse them into the sea where the Water God Tower is. The lives of the members of the demonic fled dragon clan, who have transformed into the water of the sea, will become one with the sea. No matter what attack lands in the sea, as long as the sea doesn't completely disappear, they will have a chance of survival unless the entire sea is destroyed. In the future, they will have a chance to use the Water God Tower to condense their bodies in the sea to make a comeback. The only flaw of this Water God Tower is that the members of the demon-fled dragon clan, who have transformed into the water of the sea, need to spread the water of the sea they have transformed into to the entire demon-fled dragon Sacred Sea as soon as possible. Only then can they maximize their chances of survival. There are two ways to resolve this situation. First, find the hidden Water God Tower. As long as the Water God Tower is destroyed, their mystic technique will naturally be cracked, and they will reveal their true form. Second, they shouldn't have spread too far in such a short period of time. If your Majesty lets your Empire-level soldiers cast that super-powerful magic on the demon-fled dragon Sacred Sea, within a radius of 500,000 kilometers for an hour, you should be able to eliminate most of the demon-fled dragon clan. When they transform into the water of the sea, their strength is almost identical to the strength of normal water. They will die as long as most of the seawater is destroyed. Dickens said respectfully. Zoophyte nodded. He glanced at the demon flood dragon sacred sea. As expected, he discovered that the originally dark purple demon flood dragon sacred sea had become even purer. It was almost purple-black. I understand, but there's no need to go through so much trouble. Zoophyte smiled. Then, he disregarded Dickens' stunned gaze and flew down from the throne alone. He passed through the army of the Blazing Sun Kingdom and arrived 10,000 meters above the sea level of the demon flood dragon sacred sea. All soldiers, generals, god spirits, and true god tiers, listen to my orders. Return to the galaxy for now, Zoophyte said. Yes, your majesty. The soldiers and god spirits obeyed and returned to the galaxy without hesitation. Obeying orders, even though they did not know why His Majesty asked them to do this, they did not need to consider these things. They just needed to carry out His Majesty's orders without hesitation. Soon, more than 600 billion soldiers, generals, and god spirits returned to the 1,000 galaxy in batches. In the blink of an eye, only Zoophyte was left in the entire Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. Karoo and the other partisans of the Demon Flood Dragon clan, who were hiding in the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea, could not help but feel very strange when they saw this scene. What was the common people's regal trying to do? However, even though they didn't understand, they didn't need to think to know that common people's regal was definitely doing something unfavorable to them. Karoo's heart sank. Even though Zoophyte was the only one left on the battlefield, he did not dare to act rashly. He also hurriedly spread the water of the sea that he had transformed into as he gave the same command to his other clansmen. As long as they completely integrated the sea water they had converted into the entire Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea, the common people's regal would not be able to do anything to them. Even if they wanted to destroy the entire Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea in exasperation, at most, they would follow the tributaries of the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea to the rivers, lakes, and seas of the other races' territories, or even an even larger sea. As the Demon Flood Dragon race that had lived in the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea for countless years, their understanding of this aspect could not be any clearer. It was simply incomparably simple to leave the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea and head to other sea areas. The only thing they had to pay was the race foundation they had built in the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea for countless years. Even though giving up on this race's foundation would cause their race's development to decrease by tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of years, as long as they could protect themselves, they could have everything else in the future. Our Demon Flood Dragon race will never be exterminated. In the future, when we develop to our peak again, or when your Lord Power falls to rock bottom, common people's regal. When the time comes, we'll settle the score. Karoo gritted his teeth. However, in the next second, he saw a scene that shocked him. This scene made his expression abruptly change. He also sensed extreme despair and fear. He can actually do such a thing. Does the Lord Supreme will really want to exterminate my Demon Flood Dragon clan? A few minutes ago, above the ocean, Zoophyte floated 10,000 meters in the heavens and gazed down at the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. Chapter 1038 Sun Descent. Blazing sun burns the sky. Let me do some exercise. It's boring to stay up there and watch the battle all the time, Zoophyte muttered to himself. He twisted his neck and stretched his body for a while. Then, he focused his eyes and activated the Lord's Law skill king. The next second, his aura rapidly increased, and in the blink of an eye, it reached the level of a true god tier intermediate grade. A terrifying pressure spread out in all directions with Zoophyte as the center. In the blink of an eye, it spread to a radius of more than 100,000 kilometers. The world suddenly changed color. Dark clouds covered the sky and lightning flashed. The Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea beneath his feet even formed a huge sea vortex with a diameter of 5,000 kilometers due to his pressure, causing the entire sea to become turbulent. Karoo and the other members of the Demon Flood Dragon clan, who were wrapped up in it, could not help but feel terrified when they saw this scene. What was this terrifying lord of all races trying to do? The next second, they understood what Zhou Fight was going to do. Zhou Fight raised his right hand and tapped his glabella calmly. The great sun god's inheritance. Law skill sun descent. Then, a scorching white dot of light appeared between his brows and began to spread rapidly from there. 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 10,000 kilometers, 10,000 kilometers. The white dot expanded at an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a scorching sun with a diameter of more than 10,000 kilometers. Moreover, a third of the sun's volume also fell straight into the demon flood dragon sacred sea, directly evaporating a vacuum area with a diameter of 100,000 kilometers. The surrounding seawater could not enter this vacuum area at all, because as long as they approached slightly, they would instantly evaporate and disappear. Several trillion members of the demonic flood dragon clan, who had turned into seawater, wailed at this moment. Their bodies that had been evaporated by the sun directly revealed their charred bodies. Then, they lost their breath and sank to the bottom of the sea. In the sun, Zhou's entire body was emitting a scorching white light. Even his eyes had turned snow white, making him look like a cold and aloof sun god. He coldly observed these demon flood dragon race corpses that had recovered their bodies. Then, he looked at the surrounding seawater. Under the special state of using a Master God tier law skill at this moment, even though he could only use this Master God tier law skill at the power level of a true God tier advanced grade, he seemed to be affected by this state. The members of the demonic flood dragon clan, that he couldn't see at first, actually had nowhere to hide under his scorching white divine eyes. All of them appeared in his vision. Found you. Zhou Fight's voice was as cold as the heavens. He casually took out a bottle of true God tier intermediate grade divine power restoration potion from his world ring. There were so many of these things in his king's treasure box that they almost piled up into a small mountain. They were all deity-level enemies from the lower god level to the true god tier level. They had been dropped through the King of Loot's quality +1. Therefore, he didn't feel any heartache when using it. It was still a little difficult for him to borrow Tathagata's Great Sun God Spirit's Master Tier Law Skill, Sun Descent, through the Law Skill King. With his true God tier intermediate grade body, he felt that the true God tier intermediate grade dermic powers in his body were almost depleted after casting it for a very short while. However, the effect was quite good, which was why he wanted to continue maintaining it. No, he had to strengthen it. Zhou Fight had an idea. The white sun with a diameter of more than 10,000 kilometers suddenly emitted countless red-gold blazing sun divine fire. The originally incomparably huge sun doubled in size because of the scarlet gold blazing sun divine fire that suddenly manifested inside and outside. Boom! All the seawater within a radius of 100,000 kilometers had evaporated. The temperature within 1,000,000 kilometers, even the temperature at the edge, had increased to about 100 degrees Celsius. It was Blazing Sun's inheritance. Master God level law skill, Blazing Sun burning sky. On my body. It's so hot. My body is melting. Spare us. Regal, spare us. We're willing to surrender. We're willing to surrender. Please retract your divine power. At this moment, with the enhancement of these two Master God tier law skills, the great sun that Zhou Fight had transformed into already possessed a frightening destructive power comparable to a true God tier advanced grade God spirit. Countless members of the demon flood dragon clan were incinerated to death by Zhou Fight. Even the god spirits of the demon flood dragon clan could not withstand the scorching heat brought about by this Master God tier law skill. They took the initiative to reveal their original forms and begged Zhou Fight for mercy. However, Zhou Fight's expression was calm. He did not care about the surrender of these god spirits at all. Are you kidding me? You didn't surrender when I offered it to you, but now that you are forced into a corner, you want to surrender and even imagine that I would agree? It is impossible. The opportunity has already been given to you, but you didn't grasp it. I can't be blamed. He kept pouring divine power recovery potions of the true god tier intermediate grade into his mouth, turning all these potions into the chaotic sacred power in his body as he maintained the output of the two Master God tier law skills. If other true god tier saw this, they would definitely scold him for being a wastrel for using such precious divine power recovery potions. One bottle of this potion could instantly restore all the divine power of an intermediate grade true god tier expert. Only a true god tier advanced grade, or even a master god tier potion master, could create such a potion. Furthermore, it would not be easily passed on to outsiders. Unlike Zhou Fight, who drank as if he was drinking mineral water. However, Zhou Fight really did not care. This divine power recovery potion, which was extremely precious to the outside world, was not much different from mineral water to him. In any case, he could not finish drinking it. After an unknown period of time, the entire surface of the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea was already filled with the cadavers of the Demon Flood Dragon race. There were more than 100 trillion of them. In Zhou Fight's perception, at this moment, Karoo was the only true god tier of the Demon Flood Dragon race left. The other Demon Flood Dragon race members had already died under his Master God tier law skill. It had to be said that the combination of the two Master God tier law skills, Sun Descent and Blazing Sun Burning Heaven, was indeed an extremely good super large-scale attack. It could be said to be very suitable for exterminating a clan. At the same time, Karoo also saw the tragic state of the Demon Flood Dragon race. Our Demon Flood Dragon race was actually exterminated so easily by him alone. Even with the help of the Water God Tower? Karoo's face was pale. Ha 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 ha. Karoo suddenly threw his head back and giggled maniacally. Then he suddenly looked at Zhou Fight. His eyes were filled with extreme hopelessness and madness as he looked at Zhou Fight. "I'll kill you. Die. Ah, damn it." Karoo turned into a dark purple stream of light and suddenly shot towards Zhou Fight. At this moment Zhou Fight, who was in the center of the sun, was quietly watching the other party rush towards him. The distance between him and Zhou Fight was getting closer and closer. When he was 10,000 kilometers away from Zhou Fight, the armor and weapons on his body had already become hot. His skin was also flat and red, emitting blazing heat. When he was 5,000 kilometers away from Zhou Fight, he saw the high-tier deity-level divine artifact on Karoo's body suddenly shatter. It was obvious that it could no longer withstand the extreme heat of the sun. When Karoo was more than 3,000 kilometers away from Zhou Fight, all the divine artifacts on Karoo's body ignited and fell from him into the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. Without the protection of the divine artifact, Karoo's entire divine body was burned dry. Even his divine body and soul became withered. Then, he no longer breathed. Karoo was dead. He died on the way to Zhou Fight. His corpse floated in the sun. His withered eyes still had a look of despair, hatred, and regret that was difficult to discover. Zhou Fight watched this spectacle calmly. With a thought, he directly extracted the other party's loots and put them into his king's treasure box. Then, he turned around and flew towards his galaxy leader. At the same time, his voice also sounded in the hearts of all the Blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers and god spirits. Only then did the Blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers and god spirits, who were still in shock, snap out of their daze. The Demon Flood Dragon race has been destroyed. Clean up the battlefield and leave the original Demon Flood Dragon race soldiers here. Then we'll return to our country. Also, bury these enemy country warriors including Karoo. Zhou Fight said calmly. "Yes, your majesty. Long live his majesty." Countless soldiers and god spirits shouted, their voices filled with reverence and fanaticism for their majesty. Chapter 1039 Master God Tier Treasure. Holy Flood Dragon Pearl. Galaxy Leader. In the captain's room, after Zhou Fight returned, he sat on the only main seat and checked the spoils of war of true god Karoo and another true god tier who had died in battle. The Demon Flood Dragon race originally had 4 true god tiers. Now Dickens had surrendered. Hielos had joined the Shadow Tribe. Only Karoo and another true god tier of the Demon Flood Dragon race had died. Therefore, he only had the spoils of war of these 2 true god tiers. However, he shook his head after looking at the spoils of war of the 2 true god tiers. How many true god tiers of the people of foreign races have I met? Why isn't there a single true god tier with a true god tier artifact? Everyone is using high-tier deity-level divine artifacts. Zhou was helpless. He finally understood how rare true god tier divine artifacts were in the hands of true god tier. His subjects and him had already killed more than 10 true god tiers. He didn't even encounter a true god tier with a true god tier. Then he thought of his own true god tiers. All of them had a full set of true god tier divine artifacts on them. He couldn't help but sigh at the differences in the world. Most importantly, these guys didn't have any true god tier divine artifacts on them. So he didn't even have the chance to drop a master divine artifact. He still did not know what a master divine artifact looked like. When I have a master god tier divine artifact, it will be time for me to fight Uriel and the others. I wonder if the true god tier intermediate grade chaotic sacred power I upgraded to the true god tier after using the Law Skill King can allow me to use the main divine artifact at a higher level? Zhou could not help but think of this problem. The chaotic sacred power of the chaotic human race had the ability to ignore strength and realm and use high-quality artifacts. Even divine artifacts were no exception. However, the higher the level of the divine artifact, the more chaotic sacred power it would consume. He wondered if his true god tier intermediate grade chaos sacred power was enough for him to use a master god divine artifact at a higher level. Perhaps when his strength increased and he used king, his strength would increase to the true god tier advanced grade. He should be able to steadily use the master god tier advanced elementary grade divine artifact. Then, he thought of something. As a master god tier seed, Uriel should have 100% true god tier divine artifacts on him. It's not to the extent that the Titans can't even take out such a small amount of resources. Thinking of this possibility, he increasingly wanted to start a final battle with the other party. However, he could only lay low for the time being. Speaking of which, it was not as if there were no rare spoils of war on these two demon flood dragon race true god tiers. For example, the master god tier hero inheritance, and the book of the god spirit that fell from their bodies. There was also a dark purple pearl in Zhou hand. There was a lifelike demon flood dragon circling inside. Treasure name, Holy Flood Dragon Pearl. Treasure grade, Master God tier elementary grade. Treasure effect. The original pearl left behind by the founder of the demon flood dragon race, Master God tier Jiaoxian after he died. It contains the inheritance of Master God tier Jiaoxian when he was alive. You can also detonate it and erupt with a terrifying power that can destroy a boundless universe. However, it can only be used once. After detonation, the Holy Flood Dragon Pearl will also be destroyed. Treasure introduction. A Master God tier elementary grade treasure left behind by the founder of the Demon Flood Dragon race, Master God tier Jiaoxian. It can be used as the inheritance of a Master God and handed over to the Demon Flood Dragon race. It can also be used as a one-time use lethal weapon. Its destructive power is comparable to the self-destruction attack of a Master God tier elementary grade. The Holy Flood Dragon Pearl can be used as a Master God tier inheritance treasure. It can also be used as a one-time killing weapon. Good stuff. I have another Master God tier offensive method in my hands. Zhou nodded slightly and kept it in his king's treasure box. He wasn't very excited. This was because he already had more than 20 similar treasures. They were all left behind by those true God tier enemies after they died. Originally, these spoils of war could only unleash the full power attack of a true God tier. After the quality of the King of Loots increased by 1, they all became treasures that could unleash the full power attack of a Master God tier. It was also because he had these treasures on him. In addition, he had asked the Bodhi Supreme about the war. Only then did Zhou's main body dare to start a battle of extermination with these people of foreign races who had the power of an empire-level lord. They were not even afraid of a large clan like the Shadow Clan. In addition, before the ancient war on Earth, they would usually find the priests of the country to perform sacrifice divination to predict the fate of the war. Zhou was almost treating the Bodhi Supreme as his kingdom's high priest. He would definitely ask the enemy's strength through the Bodhi Supreme to prevent himself from kicking an iron plate without knowing anything before every battle. When Zhou asked yesterday if he could defeat the combined forces of the shadow race and the other 5 main people of foreign races under the premise that he had master god-tier offensive methods, and when Bodhi Supreme replied that he could already launch an extermination war against them, he chose to issue a surrender letter to the enemies of the 5 people of foreign races that night. Then, he would attack the Demon Flood Dragon race, a subsidiary race of the Shadow race, today. As for the Shadow race's reaction, it was within him and the soldiers' expectations. Zhou Fight and the others had already prepared various countermeasures for the different reactions of the Shadow tribe. Therefore, when he saw that the Shadow tribe had not come and was planning to join forces with the other people of foreign races, he did not panic. Everything was as expected. Then let's deal with whatever comes our way. However, these methods were only used to deal with these people of foreign races. Facing Uriel and his people of foreign tribe alliance army, he still didn't have the confidence to win. Only when he had a sovereign divine relic in his hands would he have the confidence to fight Uriel and the others. Half an hour later, the battlefield was cleaned up. Then, the soldiers spent another 2 hours sorting out the reserve resources of the Demon Flood Dragon race. After doing all of this, Zhou Fight sent people to announce the Blazing Sun Kingdom's policy towards the new subjects in the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea. They appeased the people of the Demon Flood Dragon race and got the Array Master to open the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea and the Blazing Sun Kingdom's spatial teleportation array. Only then did they leave in peace and return to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. The Blazing Sun Kingdom, in the Divine Kingdom world. Myriad Ingot Palace, in the Reincarnation Sacred Palace. Zhou was currently roaming the world in the Time world. Furthermore, he had been roaming for more than 10 years. He was trying to comprehend the Lord's laws from this chaotic war. It would be best if he could comprehend his third Lord Law skill. There was already some progress. If he was given another 2 to 3 days in the real world, he should be able to comprehend it in 70 to 80 years in the Time world. At this moment, he sensed something and opened his eyes. At the same time, Aaliyah's voice came from outside the temple. Your Majesty, Legion Commander Bai Yin has returned. Currently, she is requesting an audience with the worshipped God Spirit, Lord Yanzhe, outside the hall. Let him in. Zhou was a little surprised when he heard that, but he still let them in. At the same time, he also recalled who the worshipped God Spirit Yanzhe was. Yanzhe, the original members of the Fire Cry race, were top-notch God Spirits, who were high-tier deity-level advanced grades. The deity-level ancestors of the Fire Cry race recognized them as future true God-tier seeds, and took them in as disciples when they were in the Fire Cry race. Later on, after True God Shenghua led the Fire Cry human race to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom, this deity-level seed was very sensible and didn't resist. He obediently joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom and became one of Zhou's worshipped God spirits. Furthermore, because the other party had the potential to advance to true God tier, after joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom, there was no longer any problem with his loyalty. Zheng Yuanqi did not doubt him when he used people. With a wave of his hand, he gave the other party a top-notch book of the God Spirit and Hero Inheritance Secret Manual that matched the other party's deity-level advance grade in advance. It was this blessing, coupled with the Lord Talent, Peaceful Times, Tribe Divine Artifact, Fire Cry Origin Core, and various other treasures that increased loyalty, that allowed the other party's loyalty to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and Zhou to directly rise to the level of fanatic believers. They were considered to be on the same side, even if the other party had only joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom for a day or two. He didn't have time to think about it, as Bai Yun and Yanzhe had already entered the hall. Chapter 1040 Legendary Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals. War Gathering. Your subject, Bai Yun/Yanzhe, greets your majesty. The two of them said respectfully and led the way. Thank you for your hard work. Zhou nodded slightly. Your Majesty, you're being too serious. We serve the country. This is our honor. There's no need to say that it's hard work. Zhou's words made the two gods sweat profusely. Even though the Forbidden Mage army had contributed a lot today, the decisive factor in the war was naturally Zhou fight. If not for Zhou fight, they might not have been able to find where the Demon Flood Dragon race was hiding. Even if they finally guessed that the Demon Flood Dragon race was hiding in the seawater of the Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea, and ordered the Forbidden Spell mages to bombard it with forbidden spells, it would not be resolved in a short period of time. At that time, it would be a waste of time and resources. Even if they could win in the end, it would not be a clean victory. Show me the results of your battle. Zhou nodded with a smile, and did not say anything else. Yes, Your Majesty. This is the summary of the war list of today's war by Lady Wunya. After Bai Yin finished speaking, she projected the list of battles in front of Zhou through her personal terminal as usual. Zhou took a closer look. There was naturally no need to mention hunting the target of the Eye of the Heaven's anger. On the other hand, in the process of hunting down the Eye of the Heaven's anger's target, they had conveniently killed more than 1,050,000,000 fog monsters that protected the Eye of the Heaven's anger's target. In the afternoon, he went to the Demon Flood Dragon race's Demon Flood Dragon Sacred Sea, and eliminated more than 300 trillion Demon Flood Dragon race members, more than 3 billion Demon Flood Dragon race soldiers, 256 ordinary god spirits of the Demon Flood Dragon race, and 2 true god tiers of the Demon Flood Dragon race, including Karu. The war supplies left behind by these enemies, the racial reserves of the Demon Flood Dragon race, and their spoils of war were enhanced by the titles of the King of Loots and the Strongest Lord. They obtained a total of more than 1.28 billion legendary tier mist cores, more than 565 billion epic tier mist cores, more than 96 billion extraordinary tier mist cores, 209, 315 billion diamond tier mist cores, 513, 12 billion white platinum tier mist cores, 750, 15 billion yellow gold tier mist cores 3, 1 trillion white silver tier mist cores 5, 8 trillion green bronze tier mist cores 20, 76 trillion black iron tier mist cores. There were more than 400 billion skill books, and 500 billion pieces of equipment. The basic materials were about 150 trillion units. Basic elemental gem resources, 20 billion 32 million units. More than 890 million units of thunder element gems, 850 billion units of life elemental gems, 790 million units of death elemental gems, more than 5 million units of time elemental gems, more than 4 million units of space elemental gems, 26 billion 77 million origin crystals, 312,008,630 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 1 legendary tier Lord Talent origin divine crystals, 5 legendary tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 101,500 Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals, more than 850 million units of divine crystals, from low tier to high tier deity level, 160 true god tier elementary grade divine crystals, more than 3 million low tier to high tier deity level divine artifacts, 36 true god tier divine artifacts. There was also a total of about 3 million divine spark fragments, god tier medicinal herbs, god tier ingredients, god tier ores, god tier blueprints, and other treasures. In addition to these normal gains, when the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom were sorting out the race reserve resources of the Demon Flood Dragon race, they also discovered such things as the building blueprint of the Water Mirror Palace, the building blueprint of the Water God Tower, the technological blueprint of the Great Maelstrom Energy Gathering Device, the Holy Flood Dragon Trial Tower, the battle machinery, the blueprint of the Demon Flood Dragon Cannon, the high-tier advanced grade battle formation, the spirit of the Holy Flood Dragon, the legendary level sea ship blueprint, the Flood Dragon warship, the low-tier deity level advanced grade sea ship blueprint, the Flying Flood Dragon divine warship, the Holy Flood Dragon ram, and other spoils of war. that were unique to the demon flood dragon race. Zhou couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder after reading this part of the summary. In fact, it was because Zhou Fight had used the 10,000 spirit saint on his behalf today. Half of the demonic flood dragon clan and soldiers had joined his camp. Therefore, the number of life forms of the demonic flood dragon clan that they had eliminated today was actually not many. In fact, it was only about a quarter of what they had wiped out yesterday. However, just this many demon flood dragon race soldiers had provided him with more mist core, skill books, equipment, and other resources than the Battle of the Moon Demons. Needless to say, the reason for this was naturally that the demon flood dragon race was far stronger than the moon demon race. Therefore, their race had much more resources than the moon demon race, so they provided so many mist cores. The harvest of the life elemental gems and death elemental gems also made him very satisfied. He originally had about 500 million life elemental gems and death elemental gems. Now with these 1.64 billion life elemental gems and death elemental gems, he only had about 1.86 billion life elemental gems and death elemental gems left. It was enough to satisfy all the requirements for the territory to advance to the legendary level. As for the gains of more than 101,500 Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals, Zhou's eyes lit up. Including this batch of Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals, I already have more than 800,000 Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals. We can revive the Buddha Lord now. Zhou muttered to himself. The Buddha Lord was a true God Tier intermediate grade God Spirit. According to Carol Moaley, resurrecting such an expert required 500,000 Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals, 500 true God Tier intermediate grade Divine Crystals, and a true God Tier intrinsic item. Now that all three were gathered, he could naturally be revived. Moreover, he still had more than 300,000 Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals left. However, even so, Zhou was still a little speechless. The price of resurrecting a true God Tier was too high. True God Tier intermediate grade Divine Crystals were nothing. Most importantly, that was a total of 500,000 Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals. Normally speaking, this was a rare resource that could only be collected after a total of 500,000 Holy Spirit Tier believers died. However, it could only revive one true God Tier. Zhou shook his head. It was unknown who had enjoyed such treatment since the appearance of the Great Resurrection spell. In addition, Zhou was very satisfied with the various spoils of war from the demon flood dragon race. This was because most of these loots were related to the development of the sea. Regardless of whether it was the supreme continent or the myriad worlds, majority of them had oceans. At the quite least, there were rivers as well as lakes. In addition, what the Blazing Sun Kingdom lacked the majority was the legacy of civilization in these aspects. Therefore, as long as the loot was completely absorbed, it would definitely make up for the shortcomings of the Blazing Sun Kingdom's development in the future. And what surprised he the most was of course the legendary Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals. It came from the ruler of the Holy Flood Dragon Empire. It was stated that these ruler of the empire was solely a high-tier deity-level god spirit of the Demon Flood Dragon race. However, he was a direct descendant of the Demon Flood Dragon race's royal family. In addition, he had the epic Tier Lord Talent. Furthermore, he had the Lord Talent that was extremely suitable for the development of the Demon Flood Dragon race's civilization. Therefore, he was elected as the ruler of these empire. And after he was killed, with the enhancement of the King of Loots, his epic Tier Lord Talent became a legendary Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals. Chapter 1041 Shaoxian, Zhongyan and Tathagata advanced to God Spirit. Zhou did not immediately check if there was any Lord Talent in this legendary Tier Lord Talent sphere. However, he had more or less guessed what kind of Lord Talent it was. It was from the Demon Flood Dragon race after all. There was a high chance that it was still a Lord Talent for marine development. However, it had changed from the epic tier to the legendary Tier Lord Talent. He didn't think too much about it, and looked at the list of god spirits and the list of troops. He first looked at the list of god spirits. After today's battle, only 15 legendary tier advanced grade soldiers had advanced to low-tier deity level elementary grade god spirits. This was less than the 25 new god spirits from yesterday. But Zhou knew that it was because of him. It was because of Zhou Fight's actions that the soldiers under him did not kill too many enemies and did not obtain much promotion energy. This resulted in the number of soldiers advancing to god spirits decreasing after all. The next time we deal with a small fry, it's better to let Zhou Fight attack less. Leave the promotion energy to the soldiers who need it. When dealing with true god tiers that are difficult for ordinary soldiers, god spirits, and even true god tiers, it's better to let Zhou Fight take action. Zhou thought. Other than that, there was another piece of news that surprised Zhou. Xiao Xian, the guardian of death, Zhang and Tathagata had all advanced to the low-tier deity level elementary grade in today's battle. Needless to say, Tathagata was the inheritor of the great sun god. Xiao Xian, on the other hand, was a clansman he had recruited through the true god tier potential clansman recruitment card. Back then, he was just a smart child who attracted his love. He did not expect him to become a low-tier deity level elementary grade god spirit in the blink of an eye. Zhou could not help but laugh. He originally didn't want to put the pressure of the outside world's war on children like him. He had never even mentioned letting he join his army. He only wanted him to grow up happily. However, this era forced people to grow up. As for Zhang, Zhou naturally did not forget him. When he conquered the Netherbark Kingdom, he obtained a god-given building blueprint from the Netherbark Kingdom. It was called the God of Death Statue Building Blueprint. Apart from slowly increasing the loyalty of subjects, the completed God of Death statue could also allow subjects who were talented in the law of death to change their profession to the Guardian of Death profession. Zhang was the first professional to successfully change his profession to Guardian of Death, and he was also the most talented Guardian of Death. After that, Zhang and Xiao Xian unexpectedly became good friends because of their tempers. Later on, they even took Zheng Yuanqi as their teacher and learned the principles of doing things for others. Furthermore, they even took Wu Xian as their teacher at the same time and learned combat experience and leadership skills. Now they have even become god spirits together. The friendship between these two people might become a legendary story that spread throughout the myriad worlds in the future. Zhou thought to himself. He did not think too much about it, and looked at the insight defection. Firstly, Zhou Fight had used the 10,000 Spirit Saint today, and obtained the loyalty of 3,043,914,934 Demon Flood Dragon Race soldiers. As for the Star Alliance Masters, even though they could not instigate insight defection to the soldiers of the Demon Flood Dragon Race, however, Zhou Fight was already prepared for this. On the way to the Demon Flood Dragon Race, he had already told the members of the Star Alliance Master that he wanted to instigate the entire Demon Flood Dragon Race. Hence, when these lords eliminated the Eye of the Heavens Anger's target in the morning, they used up all their insight defections along the way. Furthermore, after Zhou upgraded the insight defection to the mythical tier unique lord talent, he upgraded the insight defection that he shared with the Star Alliance Masters to the legendary tier level. Therefore, not only did the Star Alliance Masters have 2 opportunities to instigate an insight defection in a day, but they could also obtain 40% of the enemy's total military strength every time they instigate an insight defection. This allowed them to obtain more than 21 billion and 30 million Misty Fog soldiers in the morning. Even if 20% of the soldiers were to be distributed to the Blazing Sun Kingdom, that would be more than 26 billion soldiers. They could also leave behind more than 77 trillion soldiers. Each Constellation Alliance Master member could obtain an average of more than 46 million soldiers from the 362 Constellation Lord members, 312 former Constellation Lord members, and 50 lords of affiliated kingdoms. This insight defection alone was enough to make them more than 99% non-lords of the Cerulean planet. Other than that, They also successfully obtained their first spellcaster with Insight Surrender. 362 Star Alliance Masters were 362 spellcasters. It was enough to form a spellcaster team. At this point, the total number of soldiers under Zhou command was 595. 8,048. 19,006,048. Including the Star Alliance's current total of 882 billion soldiers. Zhou's total military strength had already reached more than 636.7 billion soldiers. Currently, among the troops under Zhou's command, not counting the Star Alliance, among them were 106 billion, 15,429,879 Black Iron rank soldiers. There were 315,622,234,255 Green Bronze tier soldiers. There were 50,178,916,036 White Silver tier soldiers. There were 68,058,067,812 Yellow Gold tier soldiers. There were 25,60,500,001,256 White Platinum tier soldiers. There were 15,096,670 Diamond tier soldiers. There were 10,878,013,360 Extraordinary tier soldiers. There were 5,578,016,900 Epic tier soldiers. There were 21 million Legendary tier soldiers. As for the god spirits under him, their strength had increased to varying degrees after today's battle. Among them, Vicky, Bai Yun, Wu Xian, Feng Luo, Suan and Luo Sheng had all advanced to the high-tier deity level intermediate grade. Nazario and Ji Long had advanced to the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. Light Sacred Dragon Ingersoll had advanced to become a low-tier deity level intermediate grade god spirit. His combat power was infinitely close to that of a true god. He could fight with a true god and not be killed by a true god for a short period of time. Zhou nodded slightly. Currently, he had the most Black Iron, Green Bronze tier, and White Silver tier soldiers. This was naturally because he had to recruit a large number of Black Iron tier elementary grade recruits every day. It was naturally very normal to have so many relatively weak soldiers. The number of soldiers at other levels was normal. Then, Zhou turned off the projection in front of him and looked at Yin Zhe, who was beside Bai Yun. He took a few looks and suddenly revealed a smile. "You're only one step away from becoming a true god tier." He smiled. "Your Majesty is wise." Yin Zhe stood up and said respectfully, "My promotion energy has already met the requirements for advancement, and my nomological comprehension is enough. Next, as long as Jiang Chen's nomological comprehension is sorted out again and adjusted his mental state, he can officially prepare to advance to the true god tier." Yin Zhe rose up and expressed respectfully, "My promotion energy has already met the requirements for advancement, and my nomological comprehension is enough. Next, as long as Jiang Chen's nomological comprehension is sorted out again and tweaked his mental state, he can officially prepare to advance to the true god tier." "Approved." Zhou nodded. "Prepare well. If you can advance to the true god tier, not only will your status and salary boost greatly, but I will also prepare a set of true god tier divine artifacts for you." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Yin Zhe expressed excitedly and respectfully. At this moment, he increasingly felt that joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom with true god Shenghua was the right choice. It was just a change of identity. Not only was he living a happier life with his clansmen, but he also didn't suffer from bullying or exploitation. He even met such a generous king. He felt that the luck of his life was all on meeting the common people's regal. Zhou smiled, and then swapped some experiences of advancing to the true god tier with Yin Zhe. As a common people's regal who had mastered a heaven-defying law skill like the king, he naturally had the experience of all the true god tiers in the territory when they progressed in his mind when he utilized the king. It was naturally simple to guide a newcomer to advance to the true god tier. When they were almost finished chatting, Zhou let the two of them leave in satisfaction. After the two of them left, Zhou rook out the legendary Tier Lord Talent Sphere from the King's Treasure Box. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.